One final testimony here. This is from Nathaniel. I just found this, and it speaks to me on a lot of levels. Too many forget that the continuance of a people should come from the love of one's own people, and not a hate for the other. I hate the mistakes I made. I wear them every day, and some I even wish I could take back. But time is merciless and flows only forward. I'm trying to rectify them, but some I may just have to live with. It's an uphill battle. Listen to this guy, No White Guilt.
Listen to this guy, No White Guilt. No White Guilt. No White Guilt. Listen to this guy, No White Guilt. No White Guilt. No White Guilt.
Everything from being a man to encouraging your kin to face tattoos, to how you identify yourself and your beliefs, to discerning your motivations for why you want to see the children of the West survive. Don't make my mistakes. You'll feel like a fool otherwise. Don't make my mistakes. As from Nathaniel Nelson, a warning to him about the warnings that he wished he had somebody share with him.
Listen to this guy, No White Guilt. No White Guilt. No White Guilt. Listen to this guy, No White Guilt. No White Guilt. No White Guilt. Listen to this guy, No White Guilt. No White Guilt. No White Guilt. Listen to this guy, No White Guilt. No White Guilt. No White Guilt.
And we're rolling in. I hope everybody can hear me okay. No White Guilt. Jason Kuna, the last name related to the German word König, meaning king. And so you're welcome. I see there are friends of Richard Spencer who have shown up here today, and good for you. Good for you all. And we'll be going through that in just a moment. How's everybody doing? There is a horse race coming up any moment now. And I don't know if they're going to air it, actually. They keep yanking people's YouTube channels down, trying to show NBC's stream. Why would they do such a thing? Who knows? So we won't be showing it here, not even on the magic window. Popcorn Power is with us. Can you all hear me okay? Glenn is here. Good morning, Australia. From Australia or to Australia? AJ Bell, thank you for the feedback. Loud and clear. Popcorn Power saying we are live. Pierce Taylor, Tim Scott. Andy is with us. John Ray. And obviously a friend, a deep friend, this Robin's Nest, coming in and talking about cults while worshiping at the cult of Richard Spencer. Welcome to you. I hope you will drop that nonsense, that silliness, and take a look at Going Free. you'll find that we succeed. Machiavelli Sucks is here. The great Franklin is here. Great to see you. YouTube user saying that Mr. Spencer is awesome. Somebody said, I'll have to look for it again. Something about, like, have I ever listened to Richard Spencer? Do I know Richard Spencer? Probably just going back over a decade. JK160 saying, no, Gil, what do you think is going through the minds of the horses before the Kentucky Derby? Well, clearly it's they have to piss. And that's why we have come through time to this day when we say have to piss like a racehorse. Rory says, looking forward to your opinions on this. Mark and Rory's opinion trounced Spencer. What do you all think? Who won the debate? Did you see the debate between Mark and Richard? I saw a little bit of it, and I thought where it was coming unglued, the portion where it was, they were talking about a little bit of the portion of where they were talking about COVID-19, and then when they were just losing it at each other, and it was kind of amusing. So I wanted to go back and take a look at that with you all, the totality, not just that. What else do they talk about? Does anybody know? Western Kind, Artist Life is with us. A howdy, y'all, she says, and a welcome, sister. Thank you for being here. Rain Man is with us. No White Gill Clips, great to see you. Beer Hall Pooch. Pants Monster says, phew, Content King. Damn right. He also says, you guys see the last Kino Casino? It was wild. I think that was yesterday that they were on, and they are comedians who are funny, as comedians are wont to be, and they're going after one Nick Fuentes and his movement, and they brought folks on over from I guess that used to be members of the movement with Nick. And things seem to be a bit in shambles. I don't know the details, but I guess we will see. Ragnarok, anti-communists, and I will never forgive them for what they did to my Germanic ancestors, he writes. Eagle Heart, Mark won the debate, in his opinion. Well. Yes, Mark, this is Mark Collett, of course, from PWR. I'm a co-host on that show every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 UK time. For Honor says, hello, NWG and everyone. Are they running yet? They should be running. Oh, it's 7:06. They're probably running. And I don't know any of their names, and it's not very important. So let's see. Are they allowing this channel to show it? No. It doesn't look like. Everybody says live. They're not showing. I guess it doesn't matter. Matt's here. All right. So this was over. It was also on Odyssey, but the primary location for it was the kill stream with Ralph, and they were over there on cozy.tv, cozy.tv, and you could watch it there. They were actually, Ralph streamed for like 14 hours over there. I guess he came and went, but the stream went for maybe 14 hours or something like this. They had a whole litany of guests that came on, and it was all to build up to Nick Fuentes debating, what's the guy's name? Counterpoints or something like this. And I checked into it for about a minute, and I saw what I have seen so many times before at conferences, at meetings and the like, which is people who have memorized a lot about history, names, places, dates, types of economy, types of governance, and then they name as much of it as they can in an effort to demonstrate how terribly intelligent, well, at least how great their memories are. And I refer to it as pedantic prattling. And then at the end, of course, people are supposed to say, well, they were so very smart. That's the whole point of it. And I saw that in the live chat, people were upset with it not being much of a debate. And I don't know why that was. Ultimately, what's called a debate today is what we're about to see, which is often referred to as blood sports, which is really what people want to see. Is they don't want to see a proper debate. They want to see people slandering each other. They want to see people getting angry, and they want to see how people do under pressure. And there's nothing wrong with that. But perhaps a better name than debate should be employed in those circumstances. No guilt, only pride. Hello and welcome to you. John Ray is here. Donning Armor is here. Great to see you, good brother. AJ Bell says he doesn't see the appeal of Nick. Well, a lot of people are asking the same question, and a lot of people on the other side are saying they absolutely see the appeal of Nick. In fact, on that stream, the 14-hour one that we're about to just watch an hour's worth of with our very own Mark Collett on there, the end of that stream was them watching that Kino Casino stream where they were just going on and on about Nick Fuentes behind the scenes. And I don't know how much of it is true, how much of it is Bravo Sierra, who knows, right? Michael is here. And all right, why don't we go ahead and okay, there's Kingdom of Vinland. Great to see you. And there's our young lady. Ladybug is there with us. Hello, sister. And let's see who else. Tim, did I mention you before? And Pierce Taylor, I know I mentioned you. And Julie is here as well. She says, I'm impressed with your recent streaming track record, Jason. Why am I feeling the makings of a 24-hour long stream in the future? I don't know about that. I do not know about that. All right. Yes, they want to. This is Karn. What is this name here? We'll call you Car. It says they want entertainment. Blood sports get old really fast, Franklin says. Ian T.D. Wilson is here. Great to see you, brother. Well, I mean, ultimately, you're talking about. Take a look at the faces here. This is how it begins. You're talking about a debate where people, if they have different moral standards and they have different objectives, they can't rightly debate, because how can one person say to the other, my morality is superior to your morality? That's, if you want to debate that, then debate it openly. If you want to debate outcomes, that's especially when it comes to sociopolitical matters, racial matters. How can you really say, how can you really debate that, say, like an anti-whites, could be even a non-white anti-white, for example, the outcome that they want for civilization and their people, what benefits their people the most, how that is better than white people who want white well-being. Of course, white people who want white well-being are never going to agree that our victimization is better. So how could that possibly be a debate? And similarly, the reverse. So you can really only truly debate when you have same to similar morality and same to similar objectives. And then you can debate about how to get there in this context. Otherwise, you would do one of two things. You can do like last night with Nick and his counterpoints, where it was just an attempt by the both of them to pedantically prattle and demonstrate how many things that they have memorized over the course of their lives so far. Or you descend into the ridicule, the snipe, the etc., the snarkiness, and whatever you enjoy. I mean, if that's what you want, that can be fun. I'm not saying it's not fun. That can be fun. This is not the pedantic prattling so much as the bloody arguing and slandering. Glenn is here. Where did the British girl go? I don't know the British one you're talking about. Was she on this? So this is Ralph. This is the kill stream. This is over on cozy.tv. and but he also streamed it to Odyssey. I understand you could find it on either of those locations by looking for Ralph. So why don't we go ahead and we'll begin. I'll speak to your questions and comments. We are up on Entropy if you want to financially gift, and we're going to get to that in one moment. We're also over on Cash App if you want to financially gift there. You may also financially gift on Odyssey. And hello to everybody at Odyssey. Hello to everybody at D Live. And we will have up here in just a moment. I don't know if you can. Maybe you can. Somebody can tell me if it's possible. Are you able to financially gift me over on Rumble? If so, then I'll keep an eye out to anything that is financially gifted there. Everybody who financially gifts with a question or comment will have that question or comment, no matter how silly or what have you, read and answered, spoken to by yours truly. If there is something that is going to jeopardize the channel, then I might alter a few words to protect the channel. Utah Strong is with us. I wouldn't trust Spencer, he says, or Fuentes with my dog's birthday info. Get smart people, especially interns. Well, that's an interesting. Why don't you all chime in? Spencer was this leader in the white sympathetic sphere for quite some time. Fuentes is new to the role of leader in the white sympathetic sphere. I don't think either one of them would object. It's an all-encompassing phrase, the concept white sympathetic sphere, and to that caricature. What do you think about them? I think a lot of people have ended up with a foul taste about Richard because of many things that have gone wrong under his leadership. And I think, are we seeing, I don't know, you tell me, are we seeing the same thing when it comes to, not the exact same outcome, to the exact, well, maybe the same outcome, but the exact same activities with Nick Fuentes as you saw with Richard Spencer? Or is this completely different? Are you a fan of one or the other? I know we got some Richard Spencer fans here. You can chime in as well. Eagle Heart is here. The woman is Stardust. Mark mopped the floor with her too. Yes, I don't know what was going on. She was just like some person who every now and again, at least the part that I saw, chimed in. Evela's Sunglasses is here. Simon JJ, great to see you. What do you all think? Do you have any thoughts about what's going to happen to America first with this dissension? Is it going to disappear? Is it going to dry up? Is America first going to grow and become something more, or is it going to disappear? Is it going to fade for a while and then rebound? Share your thoughts. Grim is here. Beer Hall Push says, I like Ralph. He had a raw deal in life and hit the bottle. Collett has stood by him where others have thrown him under the bus. Yeah, Mark has always shared good things about Ralph to me. Champion of Virtue says Nick Fuentes is too busy owning the simps. So this would be the guys who are just like kissing up to the women. Well, you're not going to find that here. Definitely, you're not going to find that here. But while we watch this and we talk about this, you all can jump in with comments about what's going on with America First as well, and Nick Fuentes. And what about the folks over at Kino Casino? What's their motivation? Are those pure motivations? Has anybody even bothered to ask? I'm really anodyne on the subject, so you all can fill me in. Popcorn Power says, I'm seeing social justice levels of attacking friends and supporters, doxing life ruination, no holds barred toward friends and supporters who are not subservient enough to Fuentes. Oh, interesting. So folks who are in the America First movement, who are not being as deferential to Nick Fuentes, are being attacked by this is what you're seeing. You all can correct the record here. So Fuentes supporters, anti-Fuentes folks. What about this John Doyle? What's going on with him? Is he a competitor to the leadership? Is he going to usurp the leadership of America First? Does anybody know? Does anybody care? Jason, I think you have a good heart and wanted to connect with young people. Nick is not that way. He says Utah is strong. Thank you very much for your opinion of me. I can at least affirm what you're saying about me. Simon JJ says, I don't consider any of them to be a leader of the white sympathetic sphere. No white guilt will take that position naturally. Well, that's nice of you to say. When everyone else has terminated. I hope they don't terminate one another. Bing says, your sound isn't as good as usual. Mic isn't as clear. Is that true for everyone? Or is that just true for, I'll take a look. We'll see what's going on with our settings. Well, this should be. Mic is a bit tin can. Okay, well, let's see if we can fix that. How about now? Any better? Donning Armor says it's varied and distant. Sounds like a cell phone. Well. Folks are saying better. Is this back to normal? It says perfect. Dan, thank you very much for that. Thanks for the feedback, folks. I wouldn't want to go through this whole thing. It's not like I have just endless hours of the day to stream. Oh, there's our sweet young lady, Carlisle, saying she can hear and it sounds good. Thank you so much, Sugar. And thank you to everyone who is saying that the sound is fine and back to normal. We want to sound normal, whatever that is for everybody. And we can now. I have a remote control with the window unit now. The house, of course, has central air, but this room, I'm surrounded. For those who are not normally here, people might be checking in after we're done as well. I'm surrounded by monitors and several computers. And so the temperature in this office can soar. Remember, folks, you may financially gift on entropy at a cost of 15% to you. You may financially gift all over at Odyssey, again, a cost of 15% to you. You may financially gift on Cash App. All of the URLs are in the description below. You may also financially gift with cryptocurrency. You can go to nowhyguilt.org, nowhyguilt.org, click on financial gifts. You'll find the wallet addresses there. And I do appreciate every single financial gift. And we're going to start off. I'll read one right now. We have the champion, a real champion in service to white well-being. And it's the one and only Dude Bro Moment, who starts off this review, which we're going to begin right now, with $100. Let's get some 07s and some raucous emojis for this champion. $100 to get us rolling here today. It says, for white well-being, Kip. Amen to you, brother. I really appreciate that. as I refresh over here, we know this guy's a champ. He's been showing up and just making it happen. Tony is here. Pete is here. If you're going to financially gift or otherwise, well, I guess it won't be the case with financial gifting. If you're going to rather make a comment or question anywhere else, tag me, with the exception of the question widget over on Entropy. Otherwise, tag me as No White Guilt, or you will not be visible, or less likely to be visible to me. Big thank you to Dude Bro Moment for starting the evening off right. All right, let's see what they have to say here at the beginning of this Bloodsport debacle.
Right off, but or at all, really. But what do you think about the British royal family, Richard? Welcome to the show, by the way.
Thank you. Wow, not prepared to discuss the royals.
Can everybody hear that?
Just in general, you don't have
love
to.
them in theory, hate them in practice. Maybe that's my
All right,
take.
there we go. Now the panel's starting to take shape. Alt Hype's going to jump in 45 minutes, so we're mixing it up a little bit. We're going to talk about Ukraine and Russia, of course.
Let me know if you all can hear that okay. Dunstan says, Doyle spat on Nick, full blast. So friendly. Yes, there was some sort of a clip was sent to me, and where this John Doyle is most upset about the Groypers and Nick Fuentes making sly jokes. And then I heard that apparently Nick said that they're good, though, even after that. Maria, hello and thank you. Everybody can hear just fine. Great. We'll be able to roll now. They're starting off with a question about the royal family.
Because that's the topic of the
Not
debate
a serious
tonight. So that's
question,
gonna be
though.
one of the topics that we hit. Now, what about this? Hold on.
Anonymous sent $3 Collett versus Spencer in Street Fighter LFG.
Oh, do you play Street Fighter? I don't know that Richard plays Street Fighter.
Anonymous sent $3.
I did when I was in
really
middle
cool.
school.
Oh, really?
Mark.
Are you guys
Oh.
friends? Have they met before?
There's the questions, as you can see, about coming in. We can see Mark here, a prize fighter when it comes to debating, and he's ready to roll.
Homo-centrist cringe takes, and from that point onwards, people in the nationalist movement kind of turned away from him.
Uh-oh.
Now, wait. Now, how would you describe?
What is globo homo?
Globalized, homogenized.
Oh, I thought you meant
Is that
homosexual.
that's what it means?
All right. Now, hold on. I'll play this in just a second.
Who looks like the most serious person at this point, right as we get started? Art Acrobats is here. Great to see
go back
you.
to all the super chats. Now, how would you describe it, Richard? Of course, you are familiar with each other. She might not be aware, but
Yes. Well, how would I describe global homo?
well, yeah, that or what he said about you or your
What about
shift.
your relationship dynamic? Is there something here I don't know about?
I have no problem with Mark Collett.
No, I look.
It's-
I used to. I'll lay my cards on the deck. I used to really admire Richard. I was a massive supporter of Richard. I used to have him on my show regularly. But of late, Richard seems to have drank the Kool-Aid and has been making sort of pretty cringeworthy, borderline libtard takes. He is now a supporter of whatever cause of the month is. He's now had his 3 jabs. He supports the Ukraine. He's got a big NATO flag on his wall. You know, he supports Biden, supports Matt.
I didn't know that. We're talking about laying cards on the table. I met Richard a very long time ago, and in the white sympathetic sphere, and he came in. He was a writer, and when he first showed up, and the way he came to prominence in the white sympathetic. Does anybody want to know that? Is anybody interested in that? I mean, I guess we'll just roll, but Coca-Cola is here. Whenever you have that thirst, right? For somebody to come and take your wife. Maybe. Eagle Heart says Mark is a champ. It definitely looks like we have more Mark supporters here than Richard Spencer supporters. Caleb says he would like to know. Eagle Heart, yes. How did Richard Spencer? Where did he come from? How did this happen? Because there are all these comments about Spencer being like an agent or something like that. And how did he appear on the scene? Pierce Taylor says he's interested. Utah Strong says, I just love Mark. He's always been the same from day one. There's a real leader. Bryce says, Richard is an infiltrator. I'm going to surprise a lot of you, I think, today, because I have knowledge. I have knowledge here. And some of you are going to be upset with it, I imagine, because you want to hate or on one or the other. You want to love on one or the other. But we can talk about just about any of it. Tell your friends. Tell your friends it's getting real over here. And bring them on over. Art Acrobat says, Spencer was a good speaker. He was. Who is a better speaker? Richard Spencer or Nick Fuentes? And now I'm not talking about Fuentes on his nightly show. I think it's kind of unquestionable that he is very entertaining. And he'll have like 8,000-9,000 folks. But I will say, though, the salty guy, the crackery salty guy, that guy has like between 30 and 40,000 live every time. Does he go live 5 days a week? I don't know anything about it. Simon says Spencer by far is better than Fuentes at public speaking. Who's better at just doing a show, Spencer or Fuentes? Who's more entertaining? The forum says Richard the Fed. Where are the Richard supporters? You were here early. You were trying to throw the word, we won't even bother to say it, around. Thing is here, says the salty is Friday, it's Sunday, and Wednesday. So do you think if he were 5 days a week that he might have less than that number that they're turning out for those days because those are the only days they can catch him? I mean, he's entertaining. Have you watched this salty cracker? He's entertaining, but maybe not so much for you all. He does a lot of, not a lot. He's got a couple of like accents, things he does to make fun of anti-whites, the anti-whites who will call themselves woke or anti-whites who call themselves liberals or feminists or whatever. And he makes fun of them. And some of the jokes are pretty funny. But just on like a regular basis, it's maybe for a different group, a different crop of viewers. Alcat says that salty is white positive. Well, you're telling me because I don't know. So if that's the case, that's awesome if he's white positive. Fuentes is more entertaining, but I'll go for a good dry lecture than clowning about debates. Well, there you have it. Let's hear what they have to say here. Mark is really starting off and going for the jugular.
And I believe that Richard is basically just a contrarian who likes to say anything at any given time to annoy the people around him that are listening to him. And because the general public are no longer listening, he's kind of given up on white nationalist talking points and is hell-bent on annoying white nationalists by making centrist or really cringy liberal points that make no actual sense to annoy the limited people still listening to him. I think it's very unfortunate because at one time Richard was somebody I held in extremely high regard.
Mark, what do you think is the most cringe take that you've heard out of Richard?
Well, that's an interesting, right off the bat here. What is the most cringe or take this Stardust or just Dusty or whatever her name is? She's an anti-white, isn't she? Or am I wrong? Is that why she's here? At the same, or is she co-hosting with Ralph? John says that Mark is totally correct there. Based in Red Pill, I don't care much for Fuentes. He is very arrogant. Seems to be a lot of this talk now about folks saying how Fuentes is arrogant. They call their friends in. Reach out to these guys with the URL. Get some Fuentes fans and get some Spencer fans. Let them know. Say, hey, this conversation going on is pretty fair. No White Guilt's being pretty fair, and he'll respond to all of you. Ian says, did you tell us about Spencer's history, or did I miss it? Brother, I am fast. I can run a 40-yard dash, at least back in the day. Not anymore, but I'm not that fast. You might have had, I don't know what you've experienced in life, but maybe you grew up around fast talkers. Hyperborean Dream is here. So Mark has come right out at the beginning of this, and he just said, look, I just want to get right to the jugular, right to Richard's jugular. And I want to talk about, and I'll write a note to myself about how Richard showed up in the white sympathetic sphere, because I was there before and after, and pretty close. So Mark comes right out. What do you think about that strategy? Coming right out, and Mark's like, this is my opponent. This is what he was. This is what he has become. And it's pretty pathetic right at the opening of the gate. And now we're going to see an answer about the cringiest take, I guess, that Mark has of Richard Spencer.
Probably when he had like multiple jabs. I think he just had his multiple jabs, and he'd got one of the little stickers on saying "I'm proud to be jabbed." That was.
I have been vaccinated. Now I have not been boosted. I also had a bout of coronavirus, but no, I absolutely support getting vaccinated. I think
you support the COVID jabs? You support the COVID jabs?
Yes.
Even though they're not vaccinations.
Okay, Richard.
How are they not vaccinations?
They're not vaccinations because vaccinations create an immune response that prevent you from ever being symptomatic or getting the disease again. So when you've had chickenpox, you have an immune reaction, you never get it again. You can take all three of the COVID jabs, still get COVID.
You see this Ethan Ralph is somewhere in Virginia. He's got a P.O. box in Richmond. Whoa. Do you go to Richmond? Do you go into Richmond, Ralph? Nasty place. Nasty. But I'm just in Northern Virginia. You could just drive on up here, say hello someday. But here we're talking about Spencer. I didn't know this about Richard, but apparently he is totally on board with the WHO's narrative about COVID-19, it sounds like, and also about the vaccines.
Still be symptomatic, still pass it on. That is not a vaccination by definition. Henceforth, post these jabs, the World Health Organization have changed the definition of vaccination to meet
you got an echo. You have an echo coming through the microphone. Is that what it is? Is that still happening? Or is it just me? G Money, anyone know if Poseidon is still online? Sound is fixed. Well, let's try it again. We'll get back.
Do jabs do to you, which aren't traditional
What you're doing, Mark, is putting the vaccine on a pedestal in order to knock it off it. So you're basically.
It's a definition. It's like.
No, wait, hold on, wait, Mark.
Is the echo still there?
Okay. A vaccine is, as you describe it, a way of creating an immune response that will protect you from the disease, and it's not as effective as catching it, in the wild. But that is what a vaccine now is. Are these vaccines absolutely perfect in terms of stopping contagion? No, they actually have reduced contagion, but no, they are not. This is a incredible virus that we were up against that killed 1 million Americans, and I don't know how many million. Where are we now? 7, 8, 9 million around the world. This was a once in a century.
Thank you all for the feedback.
Similar to the Spanish flu, which was.
What do y'all think of Richard's position about COVID-19?
Absolutely devastating 100 years ago. So the vaccines were extremely effective in preventing hospitalizations and death, particularly to the people who are most vulnerable. Now, I work out all the time. I'm in my mid 40s now. I was probably not going to die of this thing. And again, I did actually catch it at one point, and my symptoms were very mild. I just kind of was in.
Am I hearing this right? That Richard got the vaccine, and was it 3 boosters, and he caught COVID-19, and he's a believer in the vaccine? I don't know. I honestly don't know. But if that's the case, that would be ridiculous. No Guilt, Only Pride says yes. Where are the Richard fans? Where did you guys go? Speak up. Nobody deleted you.
In a funk for a month or so. But the idea that the vaccines weren't quite successful in protecting vulnerable people from hospitalization and death is just absurd. I mean, I don't know what to say. There's no data that would possibly indicate that. Now, you can say, oh, they lied to us because they said it was going to be a panacea or a quick fix. Fair enough. I mean, the messaging on this was terrible. But again, that is to pursue a rhetoric where you put someone on a pedestal in order to knock him off.
Bell Curve is a huge fan of Stardust in the top right-hand corner of your screen, unless it's mirrored, saying that she is one of the most useless streamers. Sorry, not sorry. I have nothing else to say. So Richard is absolutely 100% on board with the claims by the CDC, WHO about COVID-19, and he's on board, of course, what he's saying right now with the vaccine manufacturers. Now, I did Mark bring up that these were not, these vaccines have not been tested yet? That, of course, since I am on YouTube and the ear is against the door, is not my position. I agree with whatever WHO and CDC says. Even when they disagree, I still agree.
Off it. It's like saying, oh, Babe Ruth. Well, I heard he was the greatest baseball player of all time, but look at all these strikeouts. It's not serious. You have to look at how was Babe Ruth.
Wait a second. I don't think I'm good with that analogy. Babe Ruth was leading in home runs and strikeouts during his career, and likening that to a vaccine, saying that it's leading in saving, but also leading in killing the recipients is not exactly. Maybe Richard could have gone with a different one.
As a baseball player, and he was actually quite good. Hello. Okay. For joining us.
Well, let me counter what you're saying. I'll counter what you're saying. There is data in the UK, this was all calculated. Those under the age of 60 who had no underlying health conditions were about as likely to die of COVID as they were of dying in a road traffic accident. The average age of people who died of COVID in the UK was 83. The average life expectancy in the UK is 82. So on average, people who were dying of this were much older than 60. They were people with underlying health conditions. They were the morbidly obese. They were people who were diabetic. Yet this jab was largely untested, didn't do what it said on the tin, and was pushed upon the population, children as young as, I believe in the UK it went as young as 12, who absolutely had no need to get it. For them, it would be like a mild case of the flu. This was largely about power and profit. It was about making huge amounts of money for people who took on government contracts. It was about making huge amounts of money for Pfizer, Moderna, big pharmaceutical companies, and it was a massive power grab for the government. And the government also benefited financially because in the UK it is now emerging that all these massive medical deals that went through on behalf of the government who said, we need to fit out these giant Nightingale hospitals. They built all these giant hospitals for all these people who are going to be needing care, all these people who are going to be dying. Those hospitals never took in a single patient. It was all nonsense. Hospital wards are in fact empty. And at the time all this was happening, the people getting these contracts were all in some way connected to the government. So what you're seeing here is something that would have been probably a bad flu season was blown out of proportion and was used so politicians could grab power and a small clique of people who were already super rich could enrich themselves further. And you went along with that, and I think you went along with that because you knew how much it annoyed a lot of people. Yeah.
Before we hear what Richard has to say there, we have over on Odyssey, PNW saying Spencer's putting his preference for authoritarian government over what is good for whites. Thank you for tagging me. Makes it easy to find those comments when they're directed at me. Warrior Vet says, hello from UK. That's over on D Live. Hello to you. Yeah, Mark is pointing out here that, and this is the part that I saw when the debate was taking place, but I'm told the debate was supposed to be over the war in Ukraine, and it just got off to this start. I don't know if they come back because they're only here for an hour. Let's hear what Richard has to say in response.
I don't do these things to annoy you all. I mean,
and by the way, he doesn't do these things to annoy us. Great place to pause it. I think he does. Not that that's the only reason. Not that that's the only reason, but I think that's part of it. And if there are anybody who out there who supports the Kino Casino guys and they want to say, hey, the Kino Casino guys are right and Fuentes is wrong, then you can chime in as well. Just say so. Pete is with us. Great to see you. Baby squirrels. Oh my gosh. You better stay away from Carlisle Cockatoo. She is in an endless war with squirrel kind.
I mean, I'll lay my cards on the table before I ask.
Oh, here we go. The cards are coming out. Thank God it's only cards.
I do not think that the far right or the nationalist movement is going anywhere, and I do not think worse than that, because that's look, am I going anywhere? Good question. Worse than that is that the nationalist movement and far right cannot learn. And you call me a contrarian? Fine, maybe there's some truth to that. The nationalist movement will endlessly be contrary to whatever the current thing is. And
maybe there's some truth to that. Okay, I'll jump around. Maybe I'll do this. I'll give you all bits and pieces of how Richard appeared and how Richard came to the power and prestige that he had as the patrician that he saw himself among all the plebeians of you in the white sympathetic sphere, and then you all. But I want to point this out when it comes to those who don't like Richard Spencer, and when it comes to those who don't like Nick Fuentes, and when it comes to those who don't like all of the leaders that have shown up and sort of declared themselves over time. You need to remember when you look at these people that the ultimate fault lies with you. It lies with all of those folks in the white sympathetic sphere that keep choosing these people that they end up telling everyone is awful after the fact. It's not because somebody like Richard Spencer is going to show up if what people say about him is true, or Nick Fuentes, if what people say about him is true. It's not that they are the problem. No, people are going to show up like this caricature. Whoever ends up donning the caricature. Again, I'm not saying that Richard or Nick or anybody actually is filling that. What I'm saying is that somebody's going to show up. They're going to be self-serving. They're going to be concerned with how they look. They're going to be concerned with how much money they make. They're going to be concerned with self-aggrandizement. And then what ends up happening is a bunch of people from the white sympathetic sphere begin worshiping them like some sort of golden calf. That's what happens. And those are the folks to blame. So if you want somebody to blame about the power or abuse of power and the lives that end up getting cost and the lost and the money wasted and the effort wasted and all of that, if you want to really blame somebody, and I know like Kino Casino last night They had two guys on that were close to Fuentes, and and maybe what they were saying is true, maybe not. Maybe some of it's true, maybe some of it's magnified and fabricated. Get both sides of the story. Bottom line is that I only caught little bits, so people can tell me, did any of them say it's our fault for misidentifying a leader? Did any of them own that? I mean, I have been in this for nearly 3 decades, and I have watched people cleave to one so-called leader after another, and then and people could look on and say, what in the world do people see in this individual? What are they? Why don't they see all of the problems? To the point that when Richard was at his acmatic moment, people were saying, no, it's good for people to be extraordinarily egotistical in the leadership position. If they're not going to only care about themselves and have no concern whatsoever for everybody else, then they can't be a good leader. That is insane. So the white sympathetic sphere as a cause, as a movement, as an entity needs to begin at the individual level, taking ownership for the agency that they have and the decisions they make of who they're going to follow, especially once the signs show up. It's not enough to say, I chose to follow this guy, I was bamboozled, and then thing went wrong after thing went wrong after thing went wrong, and I stuck with him, and now finally I have to leave because he's actually a psychopath and doesn't care about anybody like I kind of knew from the beginning, and it's all his fault. No, my friend, it is your fault because you followed him.
They won't think through it. So
Richard Spencer, so I'll do this. Richard Spencer came in, he was writing for one of the several entities that he wrote for. He was just a writer. He was another writer. And what he did was he was a contrarian. So he's saying it's funny for me to hear, well, maybe a contrarian, maybe not. No, 100% a contrarian. Mark is 100% right. Richard Spencer, now that's not the only thing he is. So to be fair to Richard, that's certainly not the only, but he is a contrarian. So what he would do is he would write articles where he was a contrarian. And more importantly, he would show up at meetings and conferences. This is sort of like your roadmap. Do you want to be one of these sort of leaders that run groups into the ground and et cetera? Again, not to say that it was just solely Richard's fault, but he would show up to these events and he would get an opportunity to talk, like ask a question. He would tell the person at the lectern or people how dumb they were, how wrong they were. And then he would affect the most, holier than thou projection, and then make his point and sit down. And very often the point would appeal. And this is not just Richard. This goes back a lot of different people, Alex, a lot of different people in the white sympathetic sphere that have been leaders, is they come up and they ultimately make an appeal to what I call the Tertullian's glitch. Now, it's not actually, Tertullian's phrase is not actually used this way, but I co-opted and use it this way. It's credo qui absurdum. I believe because it is absurd. And it seems to be a glitch in Western kind. It's a glitch in our people. And contrarians love to make use of that. They'll come in and they'll point at something that everybody can see very plainly and easily is X. And then a contrarian will say, no, it's Y. And they will give a reason that makes no sense upon reflection. But people, especially mid and midget wits, end up thinking, aha, since I don't understand it, it must be true.
They see some liberal on Twitter put up, in their profile picture. They will rage against it. And so they raged against COVID, which was an extremely real, once in a century pandemic, period, end of statement. A bad flu season in the United States with 330 million people is 60,000 deaths. Maybe a really horrible flu season might be 75,000. All right. Over a 2-year period, we had 1 million. A bad flu season is not 500,000 deaths. But I guess
Of course, that doesn't, getting into the weeds about this, that does not discount deaths. And I think Mark has either made or will make this point. This is why I don't like to watch these things first, so that I can fill it out with you all as we watch. But it doesn't discount deaths attributed to COVID. And I'm not saying I'm against the deaths that were attributed to COVID. But I think he does. Yeah, he'll be mentioning it under other things. Also, I think they both give numbers for the flu, and I'm open to being corrected. But when it comes to the flu, by professionals, by the way, in the field, when it comes to flu, the numbers are absolutely gray. Because it is so difficult to say whether somebody died of or with.
My question for you would be, do you think there should be any public health response? Because all of those things, those criticisms that you put forward, are valid in the sense of people who are connected to the government are going to make money. The government's taxing you or taking on debt or just printing money and giving it to corporations. I get it. But that criticism could be leveled at literally any program. Every single thing the government does, that is a valid criticism.
Richard is absolutely correct there.
So do you not believe in the concept of public health? Do you believe that we should have done nothing?
Well, firstly, I am going to answer that question, but I want to correct you first, because you've made a major error in the things you're saying there. In the UK, and I don't know if it's different in America, we seem to be having huge numbers of people dying. You looked then into the statistics, and people were saying this many people have died with COVID. Not of COVID, but with COVID. And that's a very interesting definition, because in the UK, the government was classifying anybody who died within 60 days of testing positive of COVID as a COVID death. So you could get COVID.
This is crazy what he's about to say, but totally in keeping. And remember, when it comes to how the anti-whites take advantage of every opportunity to victimize Western kind, and by our estimation, because we care about Western civilization, it's our projection, destroy Western civilization. But I want to ask this as well, just for fun. What is Stardust reading? Does anybody have some ideas? What is she reading? Are you a fan of hers? Beer Hall Pooch says, spot on, No White Guilt. There's far too much idol and authority worship in the movement. FCP says, Spencer is very pro-imperialism. That he is. And I can attest to that personally. So essentially, to fill out what I was saying a moment ago, he came in and he went to these conferences. He went to the meetings. He did exactly what I said over and over. And then slowly, at first, the dumbest folks began encircling him to have an opportunity to speak with the patrician in the room, the bright guy, the wealthy guy, that etc. The guy with clout in the room. And these numbers, and this is how it has seemed to always work. The sort of the lowest IQ folks first go to these people, and then once they have this circle around them, more end up coming, because wow, now there are numbers, now there are people, now it must mean something, instead of an evaluation of the program that the so-called leader is presenting. How will you go from A to Z? How will we recapture our destiny? How will we do what you are promising us? Instead of that, it is merely how many asses surround this guy, and if there are more, then I will add my cheeks to the equation.
You could fully recover. You could then go out on a night out, have one too many fruity beverages, run out into the road, get hit by a bus, and you would classify as a COVID death because you were tested positive for COVID within 60 days of dying. And they were also classified.
Could you imagine that? Can you imagine that? The police show up, the guy's been run over by a Mack truck, flat as a pancake. And the cops are like, another COVID death. Things are getting bad here in the UK. Odin Sire says, I like Spencer, Collett, and Fuentes, but No White Guilt is the best. God bless you, brother. Money's on the way.
classifying people as COVID deaths who were on palliative care wards. So there were people on palliative care wards who had cancer. If people don't know what a palliative care ward is, a palliative care ward is a ward where people are placed when they are dying. They're never
It's like
getting
hospice
better.
care, basically, right? Kind of.
Yeah, they can only ever be cared for and made more comfortable and life made easier for them before they pass. So they're told, you've got 3 weeks to live, there's nothing we can do, you're incurable, you're on the palliative care ward. Those people would then get COVID, or reportedly get COVID, and what would happen is,
Oh my God,
that would be listed as a
his clone. I didn't see this before. Spencer's clone has shown up. Now the conspiracy theories are going to roll, baby. It's clearly a clone. Their heads are in different positions. So for everybody out there that said that Richard is some sort of an agent, he was inserted, you're going to have to now deal with the reality that I was there many years ago. The first times this guy showed up as just some writer, and he was oddly dressed. Sometimes the jacket was too small, but it was done on purpose because he had this sartorial approach that ended up working for him. Sartorial approach.
COVID death. Now that is completely disingenuous, and there have actually been cases in the UK, numerous cases, where families have sued Public Health England and the NHS because their relatives were wrongly listed as COVID deaths when they were already on palliative care wards. So what
He's flat. He's a pancake. He was hit by a truck. I should be allowed to see him.
we're saying here is you have a massive overestimation of genuine COVID deaths. I'll give you another example. You would see in...
Look at the smile on Stardust's face. Oh my goodness. What is she looking at now? Lapis is with us. D is with us. Lockie from down under. Great to see you, brother. AJ Bell. Fred is here. Where are the supporters of this Kino Casino?
Papers like the Daily Mail, totally healthy 22-year-old woman dies of COVID. And you'd see her picture, and she must have weighed about 30 stone. She was basically a whale. She wasn't a perfectly healthy person. It was a massive comorbidity, and the comorbidity was grotesque obesity.
I get that.
So they overdid the statistic.
Oh, you see, this is no one. I have to tell you, no one. And this is not to disparage Richard. This is it's a genuine compliment of sorts. Although I don't aspire to this sort of thing. No one ever has been able to pull off the role of I am better than Richard. And you see him, it's just a little bit here, touch upon. And many people will say, people who are, not his enemy at all, not some critics, just sole critics at all, will tell you the same thing. No one has done it better than Richard Speight. He has that. Find that man a trophy.
There was a big Times
It
article.
would be like a little guy, maybe with his foot on another person's head.
Saying in Britain no one recovers from COVID, because at one point anyone who got COVID and then died afterwards was actually being recorded as a COVID death. Then they reduced it to 60 days. Now the point.
Well, let me respond to this. I would like you to answer my question of whether
I'm gonna, but you're saying there were all these deaths, and I'm saying the figures.
I think the COVID deaths were underestimated. Absolutely.
Wow, underestimated.
Distinctions have been made between dying with COVID and COVID. And sometimes that's a difficult decision to make. I would remind you, during the Spanish flu pandemic, most people...
So this is very interesting. Mark is saying exceedingly overestimated. Richard's saying the exact opposite. D says he's a fan of Kino Casino. He says he's been a Warski fan and a PPP fan for years. And these are the hosts of that show. Let them know that their fans are here and that everybody's giving their opinions on all of these different leaders.
People did not die of the Spanish flu. They died of pneumonia. because they were basically totally weakened due to catching the Spanish flu, and they were dying of pneumonia, which is often, it's known as the old man's best friend or something like that. It kind of puts you out of your misery, as it were. I think COVID
I thought that was a dog.
deaths were absolutely
Wasn't it a dog?
underestimated
Old man's
because
best friend?
excessive deaths counted on year by year. So this is not looking at the actual causation. It's just simply looking at deaths that you would expect on a kind of actuarial, sorry, difficult word to pronounce,
That's a tough one to say. Actuarial, I think.
actuarial basis.
There you go.
And they exceeded what has been reported by the World Health Organization and the CDC. So over a period of time between 2020 and 2021, according to an article in the Times, which is taking CDC data, and again, it's an actuary account, is that they would have expected some 800,000 deaths. There were over 950,000 deaths. So we're having huge amounts of excessive deaths. And in 2020, there was a significant fewer drivers on the road. Traffic accidents kill, 50,000 people a year or whatever it is in the United States. And that was starkly reduced. People were staying home. They weren't doing extreme sports or whatever. So there was a reduction in activity that often leads to death. And there was brute numbers and increase in actual deaths. That leads me to believe that, if anything, things are underestimated. It was a real thing. You're not engaging in full-on denial that I've heard elsewhere, to your credit, but you're kind of treating this as if
You're not as dumb as most people.
it was just a kind of joke.
No, I'm not doing that.
I agree that it's a very hard thing to understand because, you're a healthy guy, I'm a healthy guy. We're more likely to die in a car accident than a COVID. That might be true. It seems fair enough. But the fact is, it's difficult to contemplate this because it is not this like.
Oh, did you see Mark's eyebrow right there? I think he's getting ready to throw some punches.
Black Death or measles, where there's 30% death rate and extreme contagion. It's not like that.
That's something else that Richard had going for him over the years as he sort of climbed the ladder in the white sympathetic sphere, was that he had pure contempt, whether it was deserved or not, for everybody that he debated, everybody who was not him. And again, this is like not necessarily a bad thing for who he was and what he was trying to do. But as far as being able to get along and make friends, maybe not the best. But if you're going to have a discussion with him, you have to be able to get beyond that, overlook that, as you can see Mark seems to be able to do. So he's a bit immune to this contempt that Richard has for everybody who is not Richard.
It's a very subtle disease, but one that over a population can be catastrophic, which it was.
Yeah, it's a very mild disease, I believe, for the vast majority of people, not for certain age groups,
Yes,
not for people.
the vast majority of people.
But the fact is, when you are locking down the vast majority.
Richard pointed out here that fewer people died from doing things like, hang gliding. But of course, more people died from being at home where they would not have been. So this sort of discussion about things that you can't actually know is a non-starter as far as I'm concerned. And over the years, it's the kind of discussion I had with Richard, that you talk about things that are totally irrelevant, but they were irrelevant for the purpose of recapturing the destiny of Western kind. They were very relevant for the purpose of Richard climbing to the top, which he did just absolutely beautifully. He sawed through people like you wouldn't believe. And one of the biggest issues was what I just mentioned, was that when people were confronted with this absolute disdain and contempt that he held for them for not just being in obeisance to him, they crumbled. They didn't know how to respond to that. There was such a grievous insult that they were sort of dumbfounded. It wasn't necessarily a competition in all cases, a competition of who had the best point, who could argue the best. In many cases, that was Richard, because he is a very bright guy. But in some cases, it wasn't because Richard was brighter or better at arguing. The other person actually was. But the other person was just stupefied by somebody who could behave in such an inglorious way in a conversation about what was ostensibly a shared objective.
Of people and administrating largely untested jabs upon them when they don't need them, jabs that do not give them lasting immunity. But you've got all of these people getting super, super rich from it. You've got the destruction of small businesses, the destruction of local economies, the concentration of all the wealth further in the hands of a tiny minority of the global elite, people who run companies like Amazon, etc., people who are part of these, online gigantic companies which are destroying our high streets, destroying local businesses. That's a bad thing. Now, obviously, there does need to be a public health response to something like this. But you said it yourself, this wasn't the Black Death. This wasn't the zombie Holocaust. You're not going out into the street and finding bodies piling up. But if you'd have watched anything in the mainstream media, you would think that was the case. You would think that you would be walking out of your door, you need a special mask on, and there'd be bodies everywhere.
Is a million people not a large enough pile of bodies?
But I'm saying those numbers.
I mean, what, you needed 10 million?
The flu disappeared. There wasn't, in Britain, apparently, there wasn't a single flu death when COVID was around. No, because all the flu deaths, which usually amount to about 20 to 40,000 a year, were rolled in with the COVID deaths. To fluff
No,
the
they
figures.
weren't. There's a clear reason for that, is that we can actually prevent a lot of flu deaths through hand washing and social distancing, and we just simply don't. Most people who catch the flu go to work or take the bus. It's actually quite bad. It's something to think about.
Caleb asks, have you met Spencer in person? Any interesting conversations with him? Many times. Many times we were at conferences, private conferences he came to that I was at, meetings that he came to that I was at. Small, great, big, and etc. And maybe I will share a few while we are here. But there are a lot of claims about this guy that I don't know that about Spencer, that I don't know that could be true. The claims at least of being inserted and supported as part of the state. There's, from my observation, there was no evidence of that. He climbed the ranks, and there was no stopping him whatsoever. I'm a bit disappointed in you all. Did nobody come up, tag me if you came up with an idea of what Stardust was thinking when she had that little grin on her face? Was she seeing, I don't know, what was she seeing on the screen? What did she decide to partake in?
We've now become more conscious of it.
Social distancing harms people, especially children. It destroys their immunity. If you look into germ-free living, and there's a scientific fact, germ-free living damages the development of any living creature, especially the young, and it damages specifically their neurological development and their immunological development.
I don't disagree with you, and you've made some good points.
And that is a place where I disagree with the both of them. Exposure to germs does not make you stronger. That is why people who travel endlessly, they're always getting sick. Every time you get sick, you suffer injury. A virus or bacteria, a bacterium, it doesn't like land on you like sunshine. And then when you move it away, you are the same as you were before. No, it damages you. And in some cases, you can go ahead and look this up, some severely, sometimes permanently.
When it comes to, now granted, they're made in retrospect, but you made some good points when it comes to.
No White Gill Clip says TikTok videos she's watching. Somebody said a McDonald's commercial. She's getting hungry.
How this was handled. I think I would agree with you to a large extent. I think the masking, look, I don't mind wearing a mask when I go, or I don't have to anymore, but when I went to the grocery store, etc. But I agree with you. There was a lot of mass theater going on.
Talking about masks, the guys who used to be in America First and ostensibly close to Nick Fuentes, said that he wore a mask all the time. And even when the rest of the group that was with him were not wearing masks. And then I guess that was funny because he was saying that not to wear a mask. Maybe somebody can fill us in.
And I agree with you that better decisions could have been made about young people. But that we know in retrospect, when in the moment, if I were in charge, I would have absolutely locked down the whole country, because who knows? You're getting information out of China trickling out. It's weird. You can verify it. We might have had a zombie apocalypse on our hands. Instead, we had a disease that was actually very subtle and difficult to handle. But for the first, say, 3 months, I give the government a complete pass. If I were in charge, I would have.
Oh, no, for the first 3 months, the government, well, not the whole 3 months, but initially, because the disease had originated in a non-white country, we said that all of the anti-whites across the West are going to say there's nothing to be concerned about. And that is exactly what they said. They said, go to Chinatown, go to all of these multiracial festivals, etc. Don't worry about it. And that if it had come from Switzerland or someplace like this, they would have responded completely differently. Then we said, once they realize the usefulness of this, now this is irrespective of whether or not how deadly it is or deadly at all or whatever, irrespective of that, once the anti-whites realize, wow, we can actually use this to inflict injury on Western kind of Western civilization, that they would swing the other direction radically. And that is exactly what they did. If the ability to predict the behavior of those who victimize you is the metric by which you decide what route you're going to take, then there's only one.
Absolutely locked down the country because we didn't know the
For how long, though?
Now,
For how
better
long?
decisions could have been made.
Oh, look at that. Ralph had his baby there on the screen there. Happy dad. Before then, I'm pretty sure that he was contemplating, how the hell am I going to get to that P.O. box in Richmond alive and get out alive? If you've ever been to Richmond.
How long?
It's worth talking about.
Because I was concerned about the disease for about 2 weeks. Then I was on to what was going on. And I'll tell you this, I didn't wear a mask. I refused to wear a mask. And you're better than this, Richard. You know damn well.
I can attest to that for sure. You can look at how like flustered they're both. That's why I call it a debate debacle. And I'm sure that Ralph is loving life because this is good entertainment. There's no denying that. But I can attest to the fact I went over right when China was showing the videos of people dying, people falling on their faces, and nobody knew if that was true or not. And a lot of claims were being made there initially. I had to figure out whether or not I was going to fly to the UK on an empty plane, it was a giant Airbus. It was empty. It was like me, and I wore a mask and goggles because I didn't know, is this something for real? Is this something that is as deadly as causing these people to fall dead in the streets or not? I got over there and everybody looking at me like, you're crazy. Little did they know they were going to be forced to wear masks for a very long time by their government. But Mark, at no point did he I didn't wear a mask at the meeting. I wasn't going to do. There was a keynote speaker. I had a wonderful time over there. I gave a magnificent talk, as I am wont to do, even extemporaneously, and had just a splendid time. But it's true. Mark did not ever wear the mask.
Nonconformist, then.
No, I'm not a nonconformist.
What if I were in charge? If I told you to wear a mask, would you do it?
If there was a genuine threat to our safety that was clear and present, I would wear.
You are not a government official.
But the fact is,
do you believe in the sovereignty of the state, or are you some kind of American?
Oh, here we go. It's getting big and getting real.
The government spent decades doing the worst thing possible for white people, the worst thing possible for people of European descent. You know they have. And
that's a non sequitur. That's a non sequitur. First off, just to be frank, I don't think they have done. Or are you some kind of American
threat to our safety that was clear and present? I would wear.
You are not a government official.
But the fact is,
Do you believe in the
government-
sovereignty of the state, or are you
Richard,
some kind of
are the
American
government
libertarian?
our enemies or not? Have the government spent decades doing the worst thing possible for white people, the worst thing possible for people of European descent? You know they have. And
That's a non sequitur. That's a non sequitur. First off, just to be frank, I don't think they have done the worst.
It doesn't follow. So his statement there is accurate. It doesn't follow, but it's not a change of subject. So it was. I mean, if that's what Mark wanted to do, Richard didn't have to follow him. If Mark wanted to broaden the topic, Richard didn't have to follow him. But not necessarily the same thing. And we have, was this Barkey? Richard Spencer sabotaged a channel named Heel Turn because he had a hissy fit over $600 of super chats. Is that true? He might not be a Fed, but is a vulgar, dishonest traitor to WN. I do remember that the Heel Turn Network, and he joined them, and then it divided, I think, and then fell apart. So is this what happened then? He is, of course, a well-to-do by way of his parents, which is not to say that the guy doesn't have intelligence and ability and etc.
Thing possible, but I get you're using rhetoric. I get it. I understand there is a level of incompetency in the government. I understand.
It's like him saying you're using rhetoric. You're just a demagogue. You're not making legitimate points.
There are regimes in place.
It's malice.
Well, I was getting there. First off, there is a lot of incompetency, but regardless of ideology, I agree that there is a kind of anti-white regime in terms of affirmative action, hiring, etc. I get that.
Wait, it looked like he was saying that he agrees that there's some sort of anti-white, as though you kind of have to filter through this sort of melange to find the anti-whiteism in there. There's no way. He was definitely not of that opinion in the past.
But it's a non sequitur to believe that they can't accomplish other things. They can still pick up the trash, even though they, want to promote rainbow diversity, on occasion. They can still actually win wars.
That's the substance of our civilization.
And be effective that way. Hey, I'm sorry, we're getting there.
That's cool. That's cool.
All right, you're not ready to be live streamed.
Well, look, I'll say this, Richard. I think the mask wearing, we were told in the UK, do not wear masks.
Why didn't Stardust smile when Richard's son showed up? Everybody else did.
Masks.
Well, I actually don't know if that's his son, just to be honest.
Won't make this any better. It's a complete nonsense. It's absolute pageantry. That's what they said for about the first 3 or 4 weeks. That's what the government said for the first.
Because they were lying to you. Fauci must have been reading Plato in his spare time.
Then they said you must wear the mask or you will get a fine. And at that point, we all looked at each other and said, this is about proving who is the conformist and who is not. And you could see people wearing the mask because they wanted to conform. And do you know what, Richard?
Oh, I don't know that the point that Mark is making there, I don't know that I agree with that it's about proving who is a conformist and who isn't. I think if he clarified, and maybe he does, but I think if he clarified, he wouldn't say, because he seems to be implying that the whole use of the masks was solely to determine how much compliance and who would be compliant. I don't know that he actually means that.
You can still go to supermarkets today and see scared, timid people walking around with the mask on, absolutely petrified and refusing to go back to normal. And that is what our governments want. They want.
I was driving down the road the other day. I live in Northern Virginia, outside Washington, D.C. If you're new to the channel, please sub on everything that I'm on, because anti-white shadow banned the shit out of me. That's why you don't know. And I was sitting in my car, And there was a lovely, very lovely Asian woman pulled up beside me, probably like, I don't know, 60 or so. She had on, the windows were rolled up. It was warm enough to have the windows at least cracked. And windows were all rolled up. She had surgical gloves on. She had a mask on and a shield inside her car by herself. So I gave the horn a couple little honks. She finally looked over. She was quite terrified, it seemed. But I gave her a thumbs up, like, yeah, me too. I didn't have anything on. Well, I was dressed, of course, at least on that occasion. Some of you know about the time I took off my clothes on 395 outside Washington, D.C. Maybe I'll tell that story at some point.
Beaten down people who will conform to any nonsense that they will say. And they wanted a metric of how many people were willing to conform. They now know how many people were willing to conform because this experiment proved it admirably. And sadly, you were one of those conformists, which is very disappointing.
He should probably turn his camera off. If he doesn't mind the child being seen.
Maybe let me just.
Oh my God, he's
Go
actually
ahead.
going to turn the channel, turn the
Go
camera
ahead.
off.
It's not. He's obviously. It's not his.
No, he's just having fun.
It's not.
Yeah, he's just
He doesn't need
That's funny.
to be on.
Is that
yeah,
your
it's
boy?
fine.
Okay.
Yeah, he's just having. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's just some kid that I picked up. I don't know his name yet, but we'll figure it out.
I was finally
He
got
seems to like
Stardust.
me.
Is Stardust anti-white?
Very funny.
Is that what's the problem is? Is she like seething over there in her chair? Wonder where that chair was made. Probably by a company that used to be in America, but now has moved all its development and product creation over to China. And so you got a bunch of white people living on welfare because of it.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
Oh, she goes,
oh,
speak
sorry,
up.
Didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, you can jump in.
No,
Stardust.
go ahead and jump in, and we'll
Oh.
play super chats here in a few
Yeah.
minutes. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask then, since you guys have you guys gotten past the COVID stuff? I'm guessing. Seems like it.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. Okay. Well, I guess Richard.
Did she just like ask a question and no one gave a shit? Is that what really just happened? They're all just like, who are you talking to? We heard your voice, and so we immediately turned off our attention.
What is the most cringe thing that you think Mark believes?
Wait a second. Isn't that where we started?
I don't think Mark is,
He asked
is
it of Mark.
too cringe.
She asked it of Mark.
I would say, I've known about Mark and listened to him.
Were these questions? I mean, these don't seem very profound to me. Like, what was she shooting for? Like, do you think Mark is a pee-pee head or a doo-doo head? Richard, go.
Him for many years now, and I would agree with quite a bit. I think my general criticism, because I don't want to make it anything personal, my general criticism to the right is that due to understandable grievances about the government and about liberal journalists and so on, that they fall prey to a certain contrarianism in which they don't ultimately think for themselves.
Wow. So Richard now is calling Mark a contrarian. And that's where Mark started off. So that would be in a subtle but substantial way a victory for Mark. Because if you're in a conversation, if you're in a debate, in an argument with someone, and then you say maybe they're egotistical, and you give proof of that, and then they respond with, well, you're egotistical, that is a loss.
But they make a kind of knee-jerk reaction.
I don't want to be mean about Stardust. She's probably a wonderful lady, but she looks very much like a maid I used to have. She cleaned the hell out of a bathroom.
To anything like, say, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Well, the New York Times likes it, therefore, or the New York Times hates it, therefore we love it. COVID, New York Times is for masking, we're against it.
Well, Richard's making a great point, and you never want, and this is a big problem for the white sympathetics for you see people falling for it all the time. Anti-whites who victimize us are for a thing, and then people automatically say, well, then I am against it. They're against the thing, and then people automatically say, well, that they are for it. You saw this very blatantly, and now this is irrespective of those who maybe support Russia. They have genuine argumentation, etc., reasons for supporting Russia. But you saw a lot of people, as soon as the anti-white regime across the West began demonizing Russia, they immediately became these vociferous supporters of Putin and all that Putin wanted to do in all of Russia. And what did that end up doing? That ended up creating animosities where there didn't need to be animosities within the white sympathetic sphere. We need to stay above these battles, this Siamoky that takes place inside the white sympathetic sphere when the anti-whites in the regime, they want to present this garbage to us. We are in our story. Ignore what they have to say. What matters, of course, in that conflict is that we have brothers killing brothers, and we need no more brothers' wars.
Against it, et cetera, et cetera. It's a kind of, we are in total opposition and total resistance. I would be curious to learn what he thinks of the recent Supreme Court decision that affects the United States, of course, and not his country. There's this genuine contrarianism, this genuine desire to join the resistance, which I do not think is intelligent because it is not thinking for ourselves. And I think basically is leading us to fight all of these endless battles.
Now, this is a true point that Richard is making. He's a smart guy, but it doesn't apply to Mark. Mark's not simply one of these flip the script, I will side with whatever is the opposite of what the regime says.
That don't actually affect the things that Mark cares about. And if you are in endless resistance to the system will win. And I am not interested in just being a martyr and taking up every cockamamie cause. I have a friend who joked about this, and I think it might very well be true. If there were an editorial in the New York Times that suggested that eating dog shit is bad for your health, I imagine that many nationalists would start eating dog shit for breakfast every morning.
Well, that is his opinion of you. If you're in the white sympathetic sphere, you care about our people. So what was this friend? Who was this friend that said that? That's pretty wretched.
As some kind of form of resistance and demonstration of they're a sovereign individual and they're fighting the system, and all the blue hairs are against this, so we must be for it. The fact is, we should think for ourselves, and we should try to calculate.
In all honesty, though, there probably are a few. I mean, you know it's true. There probably are a few that would take up eating dog shit.
At what all of these things will ultimately lead to. For one thing, Donald Trump. If Donald Trump had become a COVID fascist, he would have won the 2020 election. There's no doubt in my mind.
What did he say?
He did. We must be for it. The fact.
New Ideas says, I sense a touch of bourgeoisie classism from NWG. Well, you would be wrong. I grew up lower working class with a father in construction, and I worked with him. Starting around 9 years old, he would come home from his day job and we would go do side jobs.
Is we should think for ourselves, and we should try to calculate at what all of these things will ultimately lead to. For one thing, Donald Trump. If Donald Trump had become a COVID fascist, he would have won the 2020 election. There's no doubt.
COVID fascist?
And he did to a certain degree. His major problem was that he.
Oh, this is not going to be good. Can you see where this might go? Oh, no.
Is associated with all sorts of COVID denial, weird schemes of, hydrochloroquine or ivermectin. I guess that came a little bit later.
What do you mean weird schemes? They're using these things now. And seriously, she looks like my maid.
And so on. He was on their side, at least rhetorically, and that freaked out a lot of old white people who voted for him in 2016. So you have to calculate, and that's just a purely political take. You have to calculate these things and think about what is ultimately serving our interest. I think a more powerful NATO and a neo-Cold War is actually serving our interest if you will just simply think down the line.
What?
A more powerful NATO and a neo-Cold War is actually serving our interest if
a more powerful NATO and neo-Cold War is, according to Richard, serving our interest. So the further empowerment of the anti-white regime over the white populations of our countries.
You will just simply think down the line.
Think about today, folks. If we were in the Cold War today with the Soviet Union, what the anti-whites would be able to do to us with the threat of the imminent threat of nuclear war, legit nuclear war. Russia's ability to reach out and engage in nuclear war has deteriorated to the point of really threatening the people that matter, which are the anti-white oligarchs that run the rest of Western civilization. They don't have the power they used to have, which is not to say it can't cause a lot of mess, because it certainly can. But think about what they would do to us today. It would be under the name of you are either for us or you are for the Soviets, and they would kick this door in and drag my white ass outside, and there'd be nothing my little maid could do to clean up. And by the way, whether that maid is Stardust or not, or someone else. Apparently, Isabella is trying to get me to say hello to Teresa and Mona Lisa. A big hello to all of you, and thank you to Carlisle for letting me know.
And not jump on to some, there's some massively corrupt, quasi-evil petro-state that's invading its neighbor. We must like them. Putin's the savior of Western civilization. He is not. And there are actually some
that I totally agree with. Putin is not the savior of Western civilization.
Very good things that will come about the current situation we're in. So it's really about a long-term calculus and thinking for ourselves, and not just reacting endlessly to what the New York Times says A, we say B. Blue hair SJW says C, we say D. It becomes contrarian and boring, and it is not.
Oh, that is a big one that Richard has used 10,000 times when he to climb the ladder and to dominate the white sympathetic sphere and achieve his acmatic moment, was to say how dumb and boring everybody else's takes are, and that it has to be that his takes are new and exciting, and that everybody has to follow him on this new journey that really ultimately didn't enrich him like it has enriched others, because he didn't need the wealth. He was more interested in the aggrandizement, in the celebration of Richard Spencer.
Longer term vision. And again, all of these battles, I hate to break the news to you, but you're going to lose all of these battles. Russia is going to lose. This will be a humiliation for Russia. You know it. The COVID stuff. Russia is doing really poorly, and they are facing off against a NATO which is fully implemented and is going to, at the very least, end up with a divided Ukraine, and Western half of which will be in NATO.
Oh, well, okay. Let me just first of all say something here. Russia is waging the conflict against Ukraine as a police action. They haven't even involved their whole military. There's a big difference between Russia and its advancements currently and what Russia could do if they declare this a full-scale war. And who knows, maybe they'll end up doing that. But ultimately, this is like just like you have restrictions on the use of force in just about every country by the prime minister, president, whatever it is. They have the same thing in Russia, and ultimately this is the equivalent, in my opinion, ask CNN for God's sakes, that this is a police action, and if they do declare it to be a full-fledged war, then things will happen in a much more dramatic fashion. And Richard has made the statement that it is going to be a defeat for Russia if they take up to the Dnieper River. That will be a victory for Russia. That the east side of Ukraine is the only side that has natural resources, and it would serve as a buffer to the NATO countries. So that would be a victory, not a defeat.
I mean, I don't
think the right is.
Why lose? Why endlessly lose?
What do you mean, why endlessly lose? What you're basically saying is the most ridiculous and retarded argument I've ever heard. What you're saying is, we should give up what we stand for.
Tell us what you think, Mark. You know, Mark pulls a lot of punches. He lays a lot of sugar down. He doesn't want you to know. He doesn't want to hurt your feelings. He is a master tactician.
So we stand with our enemies because then we win as well. That's not winning.
That's not what I'm saying.
That giving up what you believe in to adopt your enemy's point, so when they implement things that you don't want, you can go, yay, we said that too.
Oh, thank God Ralph is smoking a cigar. I thought he was on fire. I just caught him out of the corner of my eye. I thought the stream is going great for him, but if it ends up torching him, then not so much.
That isn't.
I agree. I wanted COVID restrictions. I want a strong NATO and a neo-Cold War. I'll just tell you, that is what I want. No, I'm not doing this because I'm a coward.
What you want is the latest contrarian hot take.
Now they're going back and forth. You're ugly. No, you are ugly.
Viewer, listen to you. And
I don't want them.
Actually, both of these are very handsome and healthy men.
They don't listen to me.
This spiral.
She's smiling again. I'm telling you, my maid, she smiled just like that. Every time she opened the bottle of cleaner.
Since Charlottesville. And this sort of accumulated with that awful interview you did with that Ellie creature recently, where you sort of apologized for this, you had a go at Trump. You keep saying when Trump lost the election because, well, I can finish that sentence for you. Trump lost the election because of massive coordinated electoral fraud that was covered up by the media.
Oh, God.
I figured that's where this was going to go.
See, I don't believe in any of this nationalist stuff.
Can I ask you a question?
The nationalists don't listen to me.
Because you're not really giving me much time to address what you're saying. And I'll say this, Richard. Have you ever been to an election count before?
An election count? No.
No, I have.
I mean, outside of high school.
I've been to election counts. And as someone who's been to election counts, I have never in my life seen the kind of irregularities that were on show in a widespread number of places, especially in city areas, that we saw at the last presidential election.
I love it. Mark is totally impervious when it comes to Richard's contempt. He couldn't care less. And that's what you need if you're going to go at it with Richard.
And I am not alone. There are entire states that went to the Supreme Court complaining about mass electoral fraud. You can't say none of this happened because this isn't a fringe theory. It's a theory held by the then incumbent who was unseated. It was a theory held by several states. It's a widespread theory because there was clearly mass electoral fraud.
It's a widespread theory among QAnon fans, and of course, Donald Trump holds it.
So what about Donald Trump did better in Detroit?
Well, he just likened Mark's argument and probably all of yours about what went on in the election, but certainly not mine as the guy who owns this YouTube channel with the ear against the door. I believe whatever CNN said about that election. But many of you probably think there was some maybe stuff that was not quite right. And according to Richard, that is the view of the QAnon folks.
Than he did in 2016.
What about
do you think Marjorie Taylor Greene was elected by the deep state?
Talk about a non sequitur.
Do you think that's what happened?
Look, the thing is, Richard, we obviously have very different opinions. I am not contrarian to people simply because of their hair color. I'm contrarian to people who have bad ideas. I believe that NATO fomented this war in the Ukraine because they want regime change in Russia, because Putin isn't exactly on side with all of their ideas. I believe they fomented this war in the Ukraine because they wanted to test many of their new anti-tank weapons, which they are currently using this battleground as a testing site for.
That's fine if you believe that. That's simply a disagreement that we have, and I think there's actually.
But I believe a powerful Russia, which stands.
Oh, and by the way, this is another thing that he did over the years as he climbed through the ranks and got the attention of more and more people in the white sympathetic sphere. I will tell you, though, that the entire time that Richard was climbing the ranks, there were quite a few folks who were wary of his intentions and where it would go. And then, as you know, as you followed him at all, you saw group after group end up succumbing, falling, crumbling in one way or another. And so kind of like the opposite of the Midas touch. Somebody tell me, what would the name be? Would that be the Spencer touch? Kind of the opposite. And so even as he climbed, and then what ended up happening was, of course, he ended up getting, and it was because of asses in the seats, how many people he could draw again and again from one group and one idea to the next. He ended up getting a large, well-funded financiers, plenty of dough. And they came out, and that's really what gave him staying power. That and all of these people, and you all need to blame yourself for picking leaders that you end up hating later. We talk about all the time, women, they can't pick the right guys that should be reproduced, let us say. They pick a lot of losers, then they divorce them, and they talk about the loser they married or the loser that's their baby daddy. And that's true. We see that all the time. But it's also true that we see a lot of guys and women choosing leaders that they shouldn't have given 2 minutes to. Real quick over here on entropy, we'll get back to the discussion because it's looking like it's going to get a bit more wild, a bit more acrimonious, hostile. Devil's advocate over here. Let's get some 07s and some raucous emojis. $50. God bless you, brother. Everybody who's financially gifting will have their comment read or their question read. $50. Thank you. Some people, check with CNN, think there was a leak from a laboratory. In that case, aren't rapid deployment mRNA vaccines just a part of national security? You don't have to answer, Jason. It's just something for the audience to consider. Yes, was there some sort of leak? And that for national security reasons, there's some testing going on too in the American military. They're testing them for AIDS. Is that true? Somebody said that. It was in some newspaper.
On a more traditional Christian ground and opposes many of the social democratic degenerate social policies sweeping the West is a good thing, because I believe that different competing global powers keep each other in check. And I think the more power that the West has at the moment, the more of a whip hand the crooked and twisted Western liberal democratic system has, the more they use that unopposed power to do terrible things to white people and to replace white people demographically and dispossess them of their lands, their rights, etc. And you supported Biden, but since Biden's come in, he's been a disaster. Whatever you think of Trump, Biden has been a much bigger
Did he say no, he hasn't?
Trump rights, etc. And you supported Biden, but since Biden's come in, he's been a disaster. Whatever you think of Trump.
Yes, he has. What world is Richard living in? I will be fair with this guy, as I have been in the past. And I never got burnt, by the way, because I'm too smart for that. Others weren't. But this is obviously, Biden has been a disaster for America from top to bottom.
Biden has been a much bigger disaster than Trump.
This just sounds like I'm listening to Fox News.
It doesn't sound like you're listening to Fox.
Oh, there you go.
So you want all of the...
Yeah, this is literally all that Fox is.
Biden has the most Jewish cabinet in American history. You want transgender
Trump
Jews.
Didn't?
You want trans?
Well, let's not get into
Jews.
Right, Trump's daughter was Jewish, wasn't she?
She
had
can't
the
be
most
Jewish.
Jewish family.
She had a Jewish family, but she can't be Jewish because
She converted. Well, she
You
claims.
can't convert.
That's
you can
not
convert to
true,
Judaism,
actually.
What is all this talk
but
about
you
Jewish
can't ever become
people?
racially a Jew. You
I
can't
don't
be
understand.
transracial.
Why are
No,
they
but she
talking
practices
about Jewish
Judaism,
people?
though. She
Yeah,
actually-
she may have
I
converted
don't
to
think
Judaism.
Judaism
Yeah, I know.
really
Racially,
a
she's
race
not.
or something
Yeah, I
like
mean, you can't
Of
convert
course it's a race
races.
because it comes up on DNA tests. Religions don't come up on DNA tests, Richard.
Yes, but the DNA test of Ashkenazi.
So
Jews
Richard
is that
supported
they're more
Biden, and he seems to be clarifying that Biden hasn't done a bad job with his rejection of Mark's statement that Biden has done a terrible job.
than 50.
When you are rich, like Richard Spencer, then things like the cost of food, the cost of travel, the cost, the petrol, etc., is no big deal. So you're just like, what's the problem, everybody? What's the problem? You can't get food? What's wrong with you? You just go buy it. I got no money because I've spent all the food's gone through the roof. They can't get to the store, can't get to work, hitchhiking to work these days. What's wrong with you?
50% European. I mean, it's not a coherent race in the way that, say, Caucasoids or Mongoloids are.
Weird,
this
because
is-
when you
that's
look at
another
them, you
question.
can actually see when you can look at them. They do.
Not always. That's not always true at all.
Yeah.
You know, the fact of the matter is, when you look,
Definitely not something that Richard would have been parsing some sort of a nuanced way in the past.
at things. I mean, you sort of started talking about. Did you mention Roe versus Wade? What I think about the latest abortion thing?
Sure, I did mention that. Yes.
Yeah,
Go,
well, I think the repealing Roe versus Wade is a good thing. I don't believe that there should be abortion on demand because
Mark is absolutely masterful at debating. He's making a point. He's like a boxer. He's like punching and moving. He's like, I hit you on this point, and then I hit you on the other point. I don't even know if in the midst of the debate, if Mark realized he was scoring points when Richard rejected that Biden was terrible.
Not a conservative, as I've told you guys over
I
and
think
over
abortion
again.
on demand divorces responsibility from action, and if you divorce responsibility from action, you have.
What would Nick Fuentes be saying right now to Richard Spencer? Would Nick talk to Richard Spencer? What about John Doyle? Does John Doyle do debates?
Have a nation of ill-tempered babies who think they can do what they want without any repercussions. I also think that unregulated abortion, which you now have, leads to horror stories, which you have in certain US states, of abortion up to the day of birth. Well, when you have abortion up to the day of birth, you have literally the horrific case of babies being killed, because any baby the day before its birth is a viable human being that can live without its mother, which means you have to deliver.
Whoa, look at the eyes of Stardust. She's half as interesting.
The horrific case of babies being killed. Because
That is
any
exactly
baby the
how
day
my
before
maid
its
looks
birth
when
is a
she
viable human
looks at the
being that can
sink.
live without its mother, which means
Just
you
like
have to
that.
deliver that baby and leave it somewhere to die. And I am not somebody who thinks that those who wish to deliver living, viable children and leave them in a metal container filled with cold water to die of exposure, that's disgusting. And the people doing it, we would be better off without them. The world would be better off cleansed of people who do
Learn to
monstrous
code.
things
Yeah,
such as
exactly.
that.
Who said that?
So you want these people
Learn to
who
code.
do monstrous things such as that to have more children?
I want the people
Let's
who
hear.
do monstrous things such as that.
So you want these people who do monstrous things such as that to have more children?
I want the people
That was
who
obviously
wish to kill fully viable
a
children
non
that can
sequitur
live
as
free
well.
of their
We'll
mothers
just keep throwing that
and
back at
kill them in
Richard.
horrific ways.
Where are
not
his
to
fans?
hold any power, and ultimately I would have them
Where are the
removed
Richard
from our
fans?
gene pool. Now I do
Speak
believe
up.
I do believe
Abortion does that, by the way. But
No,
beyond that, abortion has been
kills-
declining since
it kills-
1980.
abortion kills babies.
Well, look, these horror
doesn't
stories that you're
kill
talking about, these
murderers
are
and killers, it kills
exceedingly
babies.
rare.
When do you think life begins, Mark?
Life begins at conception. That's a fact.
Yeah, and what is
Okay, so
conception?
are you a Catholic?
What?
I'm not a Catholic.
What did she just say? What is conception? Let's hear that again.
Exceedingly rare.
When do you think life begins?
Okay.
Mark?
When does life begin?
Life begins at conception.
Okay,
That's a
conception.
fact.
Yeah, and what is
Okay, so
conception?
are you a Catholic?
What?
I'm not a Catholic. Life begins at conception, but
Are you Anglican?
What is conception?
I'm Church of England. Life begins
Okay, that's what I meant.
at conception,
Yes. Go ahead.
and I do believe
That's
there
what I
should
meant.
be
Pick up the Brillo
reasonable,
pad.
There should be reasonable caveats when it comes to abortion. So, if it is a case,
Get out
of,
the comment.
Abhorrent conception, such as rape,
I'm kidding. She's probably this
incest,
Stardust is probably a wonderful
paedophilia,
person. It has nothing to
then
do with
yes,
my
I do
maid.
think
maybe a
abortion
cousin.
should be allowed in those cases. I think if you have a case where the child is going to be heavily disabled, I believe abortion should be allowed in those cases. And I also believe that if there's a genuine threat
What
to
is
the mother's
consent?
life, i.e. carrying the baby to term would kill her or put her at reasonable risk of death through generally medical things, not just because she's a loon and thinks it's
What
gonna
is
give her mental health
conception?
problems or something like
What
that.
is conception?
Oh my
to you?
gosh,
How
she
would
said it
you-
again.
How would you define that?
Look,
Look at Mark's face. He's like, oh my God. And look at Richard's face. Boy, I paused it perfectly here. You would think that this is part of the plan. And you should if you think more highly about me. I got to see this again. Mark, I really want you to tell me, what is conception? How are babies made? Where are your cleaning products?
Stardust, I'm not just because she's a loon and thinks it's going to give her mental health problems or something like
What
that.
is conception to you? How would you define that?
Look, Stardust, I'm not playing the silly game of me being.
Let
the
me
walking
jump in real
dictator.
quick.
You can Google what
Look at
conception
Ralph
when
is
a
laughing.
sperm fertilizes an egg.
Mark has a
Look it up.
mainstream,
Pull it up
'cause
online. For
he's
God's
put
sake.
in some exceptions there that are pretty significant.
She's been
particularly
looking at porn the whole
I
time,
think
Mark.
I was looking at statistics last night. I
That's why
did a
she's
broadcast
bored.
on this. I think 20% of abortions are actually done by married women. So this
Yes,
this
it's
strikes me
actually
as
yeah, and
Go ahead.
60% of women who seek out abortions already have children.
right. So a lot of these abortions, particularly with married women, I think they're selecting.
It sounds
out,
like she is, Stardust is in support of abortion, yet she doesn't know what conception is. Let's talk about the birds and the bees.
children with Down syndrome and the like. So, Mark, you've got a mainstream, reasonable perspective on this. That's fine. You agree.
Oh, wow. He's put him in a box. His stereotyped Mark. And it's pure contempt. Look at Mark's face. He's like stone. Where are the Richard Spencer? I want some Richard Spencer supporters so we can have a back and forth. We had some at the beginning, and they were saying that he's a great leader, and he still does shows. But I some of the old timers, they'll ask me, "What's going on with that? Remember that Richard guy? He had the Spencer touch, and everything went bad." But he wasn't wrong about the guy was really smart, and he was a great debater, and the ability to behave as if he was better than everybody else, and treated them with pure contempt. What essentially that did, as he grew and amassed a following, was composed of a lot of mid and midget wits who wanted to be in a position, to be in this like halo, to be in this aura of Richard Spencer, so that Richard would treat them no longer with contempt, but as one of this aristocratic class that is above the plebes out there. And this kind of thing was communicated all the time. And look, he was a fun guy to hang out with, Richard. I don't hate this guy or anything like that. He was a fun guy to hang out with. It's a fair criticism to say. I think his ideas right now are not all of them, but many of them seem really unhinged. But that's, he's changed. He's become something else. I mean, he wasn't, a lot of people say, oh, it's Charlottesville. Charlottesville was not all on him. I mean, come on, you got to be just the reality. He's done enough to not look for leadership anymore. You don't need to like pile a bunch more on there. If anything, you pile a bunch of stuff on there that's not legitimate, and then you make all of the legitimate stuff look illegitimate. So the guy was, he would invite me when he had the little after parties at the conferences, and Tim was a fun time to hang out, and we would talk about things, and so a lot of stories there, a lot of stories I could share, and he was a fine guy, he was a nice guy, but the problem, of course, was that he, whatever degree, I mean, this is like the realist criticism of when Richard was rolling in the White, and it's the fairest criticism. I think he would say that this is fair, that whatever degree that he cared about Western civilization and Western kind, it was somewhere below, and it probably vacillated, right? Somewhere below how much he cared about Richard Spencer. And he may have made the argument, and others definitely made the argument that that's what you need. And what about you folks out there right now who are followers of Nick Fuentes, who are followers of John Doyle? There are a lot of good guys out there. I think they're mostly guys, but a lot of good guys. Are you saying from your position, where and from you follow these individuals, are you saying that there are some things that you overlook in order to be able to follow, or are they actually just great? I don't know. You tell me. Are you there? Are you going to speak up in defense? Or one of you, are you with the Kino Casino guys? And funny is all get out. Are you with them? I don't know. I'm not on one side or the other. I'm just an outsider looking in. I just care about Western civilization. Been working on it for 3 decades, trying to recapture our destiny to make all of our lives better. But let's return to the conversation.
With, I would say, most conservatives, 70%
So
of the population
but
wants.
that's what I was saying. I'm not some contrarian.
That's fine. That's fine. But that doesn't. If I have a different perspective, I'm not like evil, or I'm doing this.
I didn't say you were evil, Richard.
Well, I know you didn't say I'm evil, but you know what I'm saying.
You get quite a lot of pleasure out of taking points that I believe that post Charlottesville, you have somewhat lost your way. And I like you as a person. I've always enjoyed your takes. I've always enjoyed you having a show. I'm not here to have a go at you, but I feel post Charlottesville, you seem to be of somewhat, eclipsed in the scene by National Justice Party and by America First. You seem to have lost your way somewhat, and you have.
He said something there. Mark said something there that got his attention.
Crying out for people to notice you by making takes that are going to raise an eyebrow from people who once used to listen to you and once respected you. And I think that's sad, because I do think you are an intelligent man.
A number of things, which, among other things, is that these people on the far right, they have antisocial attitudes. They want to cause terrible scenes. Many, not a majority by any means, but a strong minority. It's a fraction, but they make a lot of hay. Wanted to go to these events in order to get into fights, and they expected that the consequences would be borne by other people.
Now that's fair.
So, yes, I have learned some things, which is I don't want to deal with the far right anymore.
That's a fair criticism. And that's why, folks in the white sympathetic sphere, whatever circle they're in, they need to look in the mirror. And there are folks out there that want to play the villain in the anti-white narrative, and Richard has been burnt by it. Undoubtedly, not to say he was at fault for enough, but he's definitely been burnt by these folks who just wanted to play the villain and in his name, and they did.
But some
that is
people are
my
doing very
own
well,
assessment.
And he was fine with being that titular leader, that literal leader, that figurative face, as long as he was being aggrandized, Richard Spencer. So he bears that part of the blame for himself, having to take the burden of their actions. But this is where we have this recurrent issue, these recurrent problems in the white sympathetic sphere, where these people, they want to be the villain in the anti-white narrative. They want to say the most shocking thing. They want to display the most shocking symbol to people. And that doesn't get us anywhere, except for our brothers and sisters to be put in jail for their lives to be ruined.
I'm sure you would love to be.
It's like you're mad that I'm left you.
No.
You're mad that I left. This sounds like a relationship. Like these two guys were in a love affair, and now that's how Richard wants to present this. You're mad that I left you. I bet he's had to have that conversation with a lot of women, even when he's been married.
I don't want to be involved in the far right.
No, I'm saying you're mad.
No, see, Richard would have been fine with remaining. He would have loved it, remaining the cynosure of the white sympathetic sphere forever, not making a bunch of money off. I mean, having, the foundations and a couple of very wealthy individuals finance the condos and the trips and the flights and the etc. So he didn't have to pay for it. Of course, that's how rich people stay rich, right? He'd have been fine with that. But he ended up getting burned by what he could not control, which is this ugliness in the white sympathetic sphere of people who want to play the villain. And they are fine with letting those whose face are out there, and whether they even think about it or not, they probably don't. I mean, I'm sure there are people in, the Groyper circles who are fine with going out and behaving a certain way, and fine with Nick taking the flack for it, Nick Fuentes.
You haven't achieved what people like Nick Fuentes has. You'd love to be holding a conference with 1,000+ people in attendance, speaking to them all, because that's where you flourish. When you were doing that through your organization, you flourished as a person. Your speeches were excellent. The media wanted to talk to you.
Of course, I want to say this also. We talk about something in the practice of going free called reputational burning your reputation. And just as the leaders, Nick Fuentes, Richard Spencer, just as they end up taking responsibility for the behavior of the people who call them leader, chief, head honcho, whatever, the reverse is also true. So when the leader behaves a certain way, and I think that's what's going on, and this is what was on this Kino Casino. Where are these people? Why haven't you shown up? This is what was going on over there. You have these folks showing up, and they're talking at least a bit about Fuentes saying things, or supposedly saying things. I don't watch. I'm not into it like you all are. Don't come after me. Tell me. You can come and tell me. Don't hate on Jason because he's talking about this. But some of them are saying, well, Fuentes said this, he said that. And the Kino Casino guys are hilarious when they're saying these things that Fuentes said. And that then reflects on the people who call Fuentes their leader. Same thing holds true for Spencer. Same thing holds true for all of these folks that people end up calling leader, Führer, whatever, end up calling these people this stuff. And then they never take responsibility for having chosen the wrong guy. They are just like all of you folks out there who are followers of these leaders. All of you out there, you were just like all of these women. And you talk about them a lot, in the alt-right that Richard Spencer created, and you have the Groypers that I don't know if Fuentes adopted them or whatever. You all tell me what happened there. They talk often about the women and the females being the problem. It's more widely known, or part of the program, I think, when it comes to Fuentes and the Groypers. But you all are just as guilty as a woman who says, oh, I got these, 2 children, 3 children, 4 children, and 1 to 4 baby daddies, and the guy's an asshole. And no, the problem is you, bitch. You can't select the good guy. You are looking beyond the guy who deserves to have children. He's got the good DNA. He's courageous. He wants to drive for glory. He's got problems, but you two can work on them together. There's a possibility of a life for you too. But no, you didn't want him. He didn't have the prettiest face. He wasn't the bad boy. He wasn't whatever. So you just wanted to bed down with the loser. And now you want us all to believe, come in and rescue you with our tax dollars. You want to get into my wallet. I know that's why you're looking at the second reason why you're looking at my lower half of my body. You want to get into that wallet. We all know what the first reason is, but you want to get into that wallet, the second reason. And you all want to get money out of there because you want to say, woe is me, I chose the wrong man every time. Well, the same thing is true of all of you. When you're choosing leaders that you turn around and say, good God, this guy's a total scumbag. Look in the mirror and correct yourself.
And that's where you as a man flourish, you blossom. And since you have been somewhat sidelined, I feel
Mark, I'm going to be just really honest with you, okay? Nick Fuentes is just a little tedious, unbearable person, okay? NJP is stupid and ugly, all right? There it is.
Well, you got a very clear take right there. What did he say? Tedious and stupid and what for Nick? Where's Nick? Tell him to jump into the live chat and let's get his opinion about Richard.
And since you have been somewhat sidelined, I feel
Mark, I'm going to be just really honest with you, okay? Nick Fuentes is just a little tedious, unbearable person, okay?
Unbearable person.
NJP is stupid and ugly, all right? There it is. I don't want to have anything to do with the far right. These guys eclipse me because this is the kind of crap that you guys like. All right?
This is the kind of crap you like. Now, here's the question. I mean, if you want to have like the democracy in the United States, your choices are Fuentes and Spencer. Who do you vote for?
Why I'm not a member of the far right. Because you all have bad taste. I don't know what to tell you.
No, that's Richard is absolutely true. The taste and I try to do my best to correct this as well in the white sympathetic sphere. But there's so many people, and he may have mentioned a group there, that just embrace this villain role and this ugliness. I mean, it's just, frankly, it is truly horrific and wretched and squalid. This absolute ugliness, and it's never going to appeal to our brothers and sisters. We refer to them as vagues out there. They don't know what they are, who they are, where they are, many of them. And we don't know either until we get to talk to them. So they're vagues. And it's never being ugly and being just sordid like this is never going to appeal to anybody. And I totally agree with Richard there.
Well, and you loved it. You had this
because I wanted this to go further. None of these things can go beyond like weird cringe posting and what is basically WN 1.0 nonsense.
He's 100% right. So I'm kind of falling. Mark's not saying that that's not the case, but I'm agreeing a lot with both of them, disagreeing some with both, but agreeing a lot with both. I mean, that's absolutely the case. In all honesty, I was there. Richard did want it to go further, but again, it's not because I don't believe. I think, and it's a fair criticism for us, for Western civilization, but primarily for Richard's aggrandizement, and then somewhere in a distant, I don't know, probably second, somewhere, but you know, it's probably like Richard, white people, something like this. He wanted it to go much further, but it's true. There's this ugly sordidness of this presentation, this embracing of villainy, that is never going to go anywhere, ever. Richard's 100% right.
But they have
it won't go beyond that. It will not. Just take my word for it. There is a reason why I don't want to be involved with it.
He's getting pissed.
But the National Justice Party is holding meetings.
It's going to get ugly.
You're right.
The America First is holding meetings with 1,000 people, and you once held.
I don't know. Now, did this take place? This took place before, right? The Kino Casino last night, where these people came on. I don't know what was their name. Somebody called Jaden or something like this, and what was the other guy? Steve. Everybody is Steve in America. That wasn't his name, was it? Oh, and then the guy, Mr. Medicare, was there as well, I think.
When you were running,
so Mark doesn't know, I guess, at this point, that there's a lot of contradictory claims, which doesn't take anything away from Nick Fuentes having that rally, and that it did very well.
Radix, when you were running the National Policy
Simon,
Institute.
that's right, Simon.
You were
Thank
having
you.
incredible events. You were a wonderful speaker.
Thank you,
and
folks.
I
you were
can't
flying
do those
high.
things for two reasons. The first is extreme deplatforming that I faced, and I faced to a very large extent, say 4 years ago, more than most others. The other reason is that the movement does not want me. The movement wants other people. That's fine. I'm okay with
Richard,
it. I'm
I've
not
seen
mad.
your interview with that Ellie where you were basically begging for her forgiveness, and it was terrible because you were saying if the whole movement was
I did not
based
see
around
that.
you, the movement would be better off.
Did you all see that interview? I did not see that. What Mark's talking about right now?
And it sounded awful.
Yes.
And do you know
It's
what,
the
Richard?
truth.
Look at look at Stardust again. What in the world is she looking at? I want to hear from you all. What is she looking at? I know what Ralph is doing. He is still planning how to get in and out of Richmond safely. Dangerous place. Capital of the state of Virginia, and it's been ugly and dangerous for a very long time. Has everything to do with the streets, the concrete, and the buildings. I assure you, that's what makes it dangerous.
Do you know what, Richard? You would have been better going into that meeting with that odd-faced, silly little woman like the old Richard Spencer and saying, you know what? I'm right. People of European descent have a right to exist. And odd little liberal journalists like you are the problem.
I'm not.
Well, I'm just going to say, right, that would have been a very powerful thing. Mark is right about that, to go in and say that. That would have been great. Richard was beyond that. If you all recall, there was an interview, and it's the same sort of thing that you've seen these I don't know, pseudo leaders in the white sympathetic sphere, which again are the fault of everybody who follows them, not the fault that they exist. If anything, if we as a community began more carefully selecting who we're going to heed and follow, that would make our leaders better. That would make the people in charge better, because then even if they were frauds, they would have to imitate a better person, a better leader, wouldn't they? But Richard, a great example, was in an interview, and he talked about the white race doing slavery better than everybody else. I think that was what he said. That was just one of those shocking things. Playing the villain rather than doing what's right.
Not going to do what you want me to do, Mark. Why don't you go and do that interview? I was very pleased with that interview.
Who should tag me? Yeah, you got to tag me as No White Guilt. No White Guilt. And I will see what you're saying. Mark is on very good terms with Michael Penovich. Yes, that's true. The NJP. One of the NJP people. Okay, so is it Lockie? Are you all having fun yet? Did you figure out what this woman is thinking or looking at? I don't want to see anybody writing anything about smelly food from some part of the world that is not this part of the world. Nothing like that. Don't anybody write anything like that. Stop thinking it. I know you're thinking it. I know you're thinking it. Do not think of it. Somebody offending the sensibilities of a bovine creature. No one do that either. I don't want to see anybody doing that.
Well, I and many others.
Now wait.
And it was the downfall of someone who once did great things.
Now hold on. Now explain the interview for those who don't know what happened with the interview.
Yes, explain the interview. Thank you, Ralph.
You did an interview with CNN.
Oh,
basically.
whoops, sorry.
Thank you. We're all wondering what's being talked about here.
Well, there were some. I mean, I did a very long interview. I think they took the stuff that was more acrimonious.
Yeah.
I was getting a bit angry with Ellie in the sense that it was this, like, I was fairly and rather honestly talking about the serious problems with the alt-right. And there were serious problems. The alt-right was going to end up in a bad situation one way or another. And like there were a lot of bad people in that movement. There are a lot of bad people that are going to make any type of event very bad. I mean, Charlottesville has been massively eclipsed by what a few people in the alt-right, but it was actually mostly normies hooked on QAnon, did on January 6th.
No. I disagree with that. I mean, Matt, no. It's been eclipsed in what way? As ugly, as detrimental? I'd like to know exactly, because I might, depends on what metric he's talking about. I might end up agreeing with him, depending on the metric. But initially, I'm thinking about self-serving statement here, which is he was involved in Charlottesville and takes virtually all the blame, even though he doesn't deserve all of the blame. And then I guess Fuentes is, but he didn't name Fuentes. But Fuentes would have been the biggest leader there in the white sympathetic sphere that day. Not in stature. So I'm talking about, following, etc. But I don't know. I mean, that was Patriots Day, the day the patriot lost his innocence, when he discovered that the Capitol wasn't the people's house, but a whore's house.
These things end up in a situation I can kind of imagine.
But there's an implication there that there were some really ugly things done. And it sounds like he would absolutely affirm that argument, that there were some really ugly things that were the responsibility of those who came there to voice their opinions, and that it was the consequence of those just even showing up. I mean, this is why you have to have a tighter control. And the leader, when you're picking your leaders next time, folks, there has to be a tighter control and a tighter and more professional example. What would you like to have step in front of your congregation of whatever religion you practice, or if you're an atheist at your, whatever, your orgy or whatever you all do? Who would you like to step up at I can assure you, you would like me at both of them, by the way. But nonetheless, who would you like to have up there, at the front? And what kind of people? I get plenty of people who hate me because I'm not a degenerate like these folks that Spencer's talking about, who are just ugly and want to be as violent as possible. But Spencer is not the opposite to that. Please don't fall for this. I made the argument many years ago about this, and this is what I guess they both were kind of talking about, a contrary nature tangentially to this point I'm about to make. Two hemispheres, and we see things totally in black and white as a consequence. So don't come to the conclusion that Spencer arguing against the ugliness and what we call playing the villain, is because he played the villain as well, puts him on the side of those who are doing what's right or appropriate or more accurately or closely to what will succeed for our people, because he made the most outrageous comments for the point of popularity. And then he argued in these private meetings that were had, that I was at, he came to, and public ones as well, that no, you have to make these kinds of statements so that the regimes, this anti-white regime, will carry you on their media. Well, if they carry you on their media, they own you, and they owned Richard Spencer.
Oh, unfortunately,
not that they owned him. Wait, don't take that the wrong way, that they were paying him or anything like. His approach was owned by them, and therefore his persona ended up being owned by them.
I can almost imagine a kind of multiverse, like these, you see this in comic book movies now, multiverse, so there's like another you out there. I can imagine imagine a kind of multiverse, like these, you see this in comic book movies now, multiverse, so there's like another you out there.
Oh, another
I can imagine another Richard Spencer who did exactly what Mark Collett wants. That Richard Spencer will probably be in. That's
a I don't know if is that scary? A Richard Spencer out there that does exactly what Mark Collett wants? What would that be? Do you have any thoughts?
Jail and would be, involved in January 6th and will be yelling "Hail Trump" in 2020.
Odin says that Jason and Dr. Slattery did great live streams on Patriots Day. Yes, I may or may not have been there that day. I may or may not have been at Charlottesville. I have been around in the white sympathetic sphere for nearly 3 decades.
And basically utterly destroying his life.
Oh, well,
Richard,
that's so he's saying that
be
if
that
he
person.
follows
Richard
Mark, it would have destroyed Spencer's life. Well, you know, he lost that lawsuit for Charlottesville, right? Does anybody know the details? Any more details about that?
Spencer would have been
And that's certainly all of that money, all those legal at the lawfare, and weighed against a bunch of mid and midget wits thinking you're terribly bright and a great guy is just not worth it. You folks, you got to be in this for the right thing. Take a look in the mirror. Go get a baptism of fire if need be to start picking folks who can actually lead and be in charge. Everybody wants to follow the latest, you know, the latest movie hero, or I guess over the course of your life, all the little movie heroes. You can see them in the folks that all of you end up choosing for your leaders.
Highly respected man, speaking to hundreds of people at conferences, being part of a community, part of a movement. And instead, the Richard Spencer we have in this universe is one who groveled to some strange-faced liberal journalist who basically
I don't think most people saw that interview as
Western
groveling.
society on
Mark,
its head.
don't you think that's a little unfair though? Because
Well, that
you're
she's
asking him.
strange-faced or that he groveled.
No. You're asking him to basically sacrifice his life and his livelihood.
That's what we all must do. If you have a righteous cause, you fight for that.
Look at Richard's face. That tells you everything. At no point was he going to sacrifice everything. He was there for the laudation. He was there to be celebrated as primary. Then he cared for white people and Western civilization somewhere below that.
No martyr.
Righteous cause, because it's better to live for a day as a lion than it is
Then
to live
go
a
be me.
lifetime
Don't
as a
be me,
sheep.
Mark. You think I'm a sheep? Fine. Go be me. Go be the Richard Spencer that you think you're.
Oh, I
the
want you to be
nationalist
rich. I want you. I want you, Richard, to regain your.
You're going to be
greatness, the Richard
disappointed. This is
Spencer.
who I am. This is who I am.
Richard,
You're going to
what
be
you
disappointed.
are-
I'm
what
sorry.
you are,
But like,
you're somebody who wants to be sort of this contrarian. You're never going to go into the mainstream, Richard. All you will manage to do, taking this line, is destroy yourself and alienate yourself from the people who once followed you. And for what? To please the liberals that you oppose and you at one time dedicated your life to defeating, and now you're just going along with all of their
I
takes.
don't-
For what?
This is much more, as I watch this now, than just a debate debacle, and very enjoyable, of course. And Ralph did a great job. But you're seeing, this is almost like psychoanalysis. They are digging in the weeds of the psyche here. Who really is Richard Spencer? Who really is Mark Collett? They're kind of going at each other. Do you all realize what happened here? Write the day down on your calendar.
I mean, I've got to run because I'm actually 5 minutes late for.
And that is the epitaph on who really Richard Spencer is.
the stream. I don't want to be in. I think
They don't
the
end yet, dude.
nationalist movement
They're like
is a
around for at least
hamster
10 more
wheel.
minutes.
And
But it's
you know what?
flourishing.
Let me finish. I
Yeah,
don't
let-
see it as flourishing.
What,
I
Nick
would
Fuentes
never
having
join it.
1,000 people at at this massive meeting.
Go
with
join Nick
elected
Fuentes
representatives.
if that is the kind of stupid nonsense you are into.
I want to know what Nick thinks about this debate. Did he watch it?
Okay.
You would love to be speaking.
No.
No, I wouldn't. I do not want to be on stage with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gossner or whatever the hell. That is literally the most embarrassing possible thing I could imagine. Or claiming I'm America first and waving a flag and talking about how great Donald Trump is. That is cringe.
You supported
as
Donald
hell.
Trump. You
Yes,
supported
and
Donald
I
Trump.
was
We all
wrong.
rode the wave
I
of the
supported
Trump
him
train.
in a particular moment And I recognized how wrong I was.
Wow, he's calling out Nick. I think Nick has to respond to that, don't you? I mean, Richard Spencer, this former icon in the white sympathetic sphere, is saying whatever support he gave to Nick Fuentes, that he was wrong. He has rescinded the support and he has moved on, and that it would be totally cringe, taken right out of the Groyper playbook, to be on stage with Gosar and Marjorie Green. Are they going to return, by the way? Did they disavow him? I think the Kino Casino people were saying. I don't know if that's true or not.
All right, now
Why were you wrong?
I don't
though?
know what to tell you.
Why were
You're
you
so
wrong,
mad.
Richard?
You want to expel me, and I'm like, okay.
I'm not
And
trying
then
to
you want to
expel you.
expel
I'm
me
trying to have a
again.
conversation because,
Well,
as I
we
said,
can
I
have
held
a
you in very
conversation,
much
but I don't
high
like being
regard.
called like I'm
Well,
a loser because
well, I
didn't
nationalists
say
don't
you were a
like me
loser.
anymore.
Well, I was
Do you
gonna.
feel
Oh,
like-
wait, hold on, wait.
Can I ask you?
Wait, hold on, wait. I want to ask something. Do you feel like it's possible that, I mean, maybe Richard just had a change of heart, right? He went through his thing, and I know the audience doesn't like Richard to a certain extent. Some of the segment there, right? But
Well,
and
if
again,
that's
you
the
know, we have our
case,
differences
then
too.
a big attaboy for Spencer to go into a hostile environment.
I like Richard because he comes on and he talks and he stirs the drink here like I do a little bit. You know what I mean? Like gets people going, and he's always a good conversation. But I never thought he was. I don't think Richard's fake. You know, I think he just maybe has had a change of heart. You know, like due to his experiences in the media and falling out with people and
Well,
stuff like that.
okay, Ralph, just be quiet for 2 seconds, please. I'll ask you a question. Did you have a change of heart because you thought your views were actually wrong, or did you have a change of heart because you didn't win? Because that's the important question you have to ask yourself. Because if you're having a change of heart because you didn't win,
I think that what's happening for Mark is that he is misdiagnosing Richard's primary impetus.
that's not really a change of heart. That's just painting a face on.
No, I think it's maybe a bit of a bit of a combination of that. I mean, when you don't win at something and something leads down a path towards what I view as destruction or failure, like getting off that path is not wrong. But I actually have evolved in certain directions. But one of my major evolutions is recognizing nationalism as a hamster wheel. And you feel like you're getting progress. You're spinning and spinning around.
This is some education for everyone. You should listen closely, because this is when you get into the white sympathetic sphere. This is true. You keep running up against, I told you all, and we named these folks initially Ant-Nats, and then we changed it. The Ant-Nats, you could be anti-nationalist and not necessarily have a big problem. Change it to cult Nats for nationalists, cult nationalists, because they come in, and this is what I talked about. This is what Richard ultimately is speaking to. They come in and they demand that things be done their way, and they undermine things. You have to talk with their locution. It has to be based totally in the anti-white narrative. You have to totally look like the villain. And that's why as soon as you begin building momentum, they show up. And many of them, I believe, are not actually white sympathetic at all. Many of them are actually anti-whites who have built up reputations online as white sympathetics. And much easier to do it than in person in the days of old, if you will. But they even did it back then as well.
Around in circles. And I'm not interested in it. I'm too old. I want to develop intellectually and as a person.
But what he's doing, of course, now, this is the typical, I'm better than you. I've grown from where you are. This is pure Richard Spencer. It's not just I've changed my mind. I was burned. That's kind of like Ralph was putting it. I've changed my mind. I'm going a different direction. Now it's I've grown intellectually. I've evolved, which everybody takes to understand that you've gone from someplace simpler to someplace more complex. And then they use it's sort of a nonce word, the devolve, when really evolution doesn't go simply from simple to complex. It also goes from complex to simple. Just
I
an
don't
education.
think that is possible in a movement that just really cannot go anywhere and has, I think, really faulty instincts that will kind of always lead it to the same place. That's my assessment. You can totally disagree with me. Fair enough. That's just what my assessment is. Do you think
This is a deeply emotional, I mean, this was big. Is everybody else talking about this or no? Is it only us? This was just yesterday. This was like down, this is down in the emotions of both of these men.
I'm lying?
Richard, do you know what it sounds like? There's an old phrase: don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened. Hold your head high and smile and say what you really are. Because to me, I would rather fight and lose. I would rather fight and lose. I would rather fight and lose than paint on a false mask, pretend to be something I'm not, so I could say that I'm on the winning side. Because fighting and losing and maintaining your dignity as a man, that means
defending Richard Spencer, but he's not saying he's not doing that. He's recognizing that it sucked, recognizing that it went nowhere, and he's out.
But it hasn't gone nowhere, has it? It hasn't gone nowhere. That's why he's on Cozy TV. That's why the NJP are having these gigantic rallies.
Are you on Cozy?
No, he's not on
any of that stuff. I just don't want to do that stuff. I would much rather, like, go to the dentist and do that stuff. Okay?
So can I ask a quick question?
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you, Richard.
I appreciate you for saying a little bit. Thank you, man.
Stardust, that's the question. She's been extremely polite in that.
Oh, no problem. So do you feel that
It's almost
Mark
over,
is
folks.
being kind of woke scoldy with you right now? Do you feel like
Woke what?
Yeah, the nationalist.
What is that?
And I gotta go.
question.
Thank you,
Oh,
Richard.
Does
I
anybody know what
appreciate
you just
man.
said?
you,
Woke?
Richard.
Appreciate you for saying a little bit. Thank you,
Scoldy?
man.
Stardust, that's the question. She's been extremely polite in that.
Oh, no problem. So do you feel that Mark is being kind of woke scoldy with you right now? Do you feel like
I don't know. Do you all know what that is? Like scolding somebody to be, by the metric of, I guess, anti-white idea. That I don't get it. What is she talking about?
Yeah, the nationalist version of woke scolding. Yeah, I kind of feel that a bit. The other thing, he is basically saying that I'm lying, and I don't appreciate that. I do like Mark still, but I don't appreciate some notion that, like,
Well, that's
who
why I was trying
really
to
am
turn that a
is
little bit.
something else, so
Yeah.
that I'm lying. I'm not lying.
I'm not saying you're
That's
lying,
one
Richard,
thing I
but you
won't
just
do.
said part of the reason you're changing
I'm
your
perfectly
opinion is
happy
because you
with
didn't
Richard
win.
Spencer
Oh, boy.
to be out. I think
Who
it's
is this?
great. I think it's wonderful.
Right, Ryan's always hated me, I believe. So yeah, he's happy.
So this is
Ryan? Do you hate him?
no.
That was tepid.
Yes.
Oh,
I think
okay.
Dislike him.
We get to the truth.
Right. It's not,
Yeah.
well, I mean, stop talking about like I learned from Charlottesville, but the thing is that shouldn't be a thing you should learn, is like the retard rallies. And then I see
Hold
January
on.
6th is
I got to jump in right there. There was we were able, and it wasn't fruitful, but we were able to have rallies. We were able to have marches, and they very often would quarantine us, and so they weren't effective. And then they could portray us the way the regime wanted to portray us. And the big problem was not so much that they would quarantine us or just be able to speak ill of us, if you will, but because people would come out and like, to Richard's point, these absolutely hideous projections. The aesthetics were of the villain, and so of course it's going to go bad. But this, and I've seen people talk about this, like, well, you should have known about Charlotte. No, you should not. The people of America were betrayed, and this is a really, I don't know Ryan, and so I'm not. He probably didn't come up with the idea, not his fault, but it's a really stupid take to say that, well, that was dumb from its inception. Why is it a stupid take? Number one, it's not true. We were able to have rallies. We were able to have marches. Sometimes they were interrupted by law enforcement, but nothing like this. Number two, it's a terrible take, because for the recapture of our destiny, for our people, a much better story is the truth that we we're betrayed by the government that's supposed to represent us. That's the better take. Not that people in the white sympathetic sphere should have known that this was going to happen. For God's sake, does anybody think in the white sympathetic sphere, how do these ideas come to the fore and they get repeated by so many people? The anti-whites would never make such a mistake. They would never say, oh, it's all on us. It was just stupid members of our community. No, of course they would say we had the legal right to be there and we were portrayed by the monsters in charge of the government. For fuck's sake.
Like the mother of all retard rallies, right? It was basically not.
I've got to run.
Thank you, Richard.
I'm not trying to be rude
I
to
understand.
Ryan.
Thank you, Richard. Maybe we'll talk again. Maybe we'll
He's already
talk
late for another stream.
Ryan can continue talking.
Maybe we'll talk again.
We'll get you
Mine
back
has to
next
be
time.
done.
Thank you, man. I
basically
appreciate
said
it.
the thing.
Thank you, man.
All right.
Well,
that's it, folks. Who won this very moving, emotional, very emotional debate debacle? I don't know why more people, maybe they are talking about it. I'll take a look at all of your comments and see if anybody financially gifted. All of those, of course, will be read. And questions or comments, whatever they might be, telling me how wrong I am, that's fine too. I'll heed everybody's comments here today for the little bit that we are here longer. Who won? Was it Mark? What did you learn? Did you learn that something new about one of these guys? I think, in my opinion, it's kind of easy that Mark was the winner of this debate. But I think it went beyond debate. It got into a very personal area for both of them. We got to see a lot about Mark, didn't we? We got to see Mark in a position of almost, at one point, he's having a debate. He's throwing out topics. He's punching on those topics. He's moving again, moving to the right, moving to the left. He's weaving, as he is wont to do in these conversations, these arguments. And then we saw him sort of transition to be the leader you used to be. Take the helm, Richard. Why don't you care anymore? Why have you taken this oppositional position relative to those of us who still care about Western civilization, Western kind? And it was almost like a pleading there, wasn't it? It was almost like a get, one more time, for the Gipper kind of a thing. And then Spencer, this very raw and real, I've been burned. It sort of kind of came out there, and he raised his voice. Some of the vernacular he chose is like, you're begging me to combat or to quit. Be me. You want to throw me out? Well, I'm leaving. It really was like a breakup. I wonder if maybe Amber and Johnny were watching, if they would have seen a lot of themselves in the conversation. What did you think? What did you get out of it before we get out of here? It's great to see everybody. Thank you all for showing up. And we have here Promethean Promulgation, financially gifting $10. God bless you and thank you so much, brother. Richard is criticizing any and every group that is heretical to anti-whiteism and lumping all of their foibles into one basket, a common anti-white tactic. Well written, brother. Thank you very much for sharing your opinion and for doing so with a financial gift. Let me scroll through here and see what you all said. Tim said, I followed Jason's stream on Patriot Day, the day the Patriot lost his innocence. Bain says, Spencer considers Patriots Day treason. But treason to what? A destructive anti-white regime? Wow. Is that really his position? He considered it treason? That's, yeah. That you asked the pertinent question, treason to who and what? He's more than bright enough to make nuanced arguments. And this is exactly, so he could say, depending on the audience, he could very easily say that, well, for this audience, my nuanced take to defend that argument is A. And for the next audience, it is B. And be able to get away with both. That's why just being able to recite history, no dates, being able to have clever original takes or whatever is not the sign you all need to be looking for leadership. It's a sign of a bright person. Stephen is with us. Iron March is with us. Great name. If you want your comment to be read, make sure you tag me. Lockie is here. He says his clone did rock up earlier. Maybe he was referencing him. Maybe so. Promethean Promulgation. This multiverse crap is just cover for his clone's slip up. Yes. Well, that was also revealed during this stream, wasn't it? That there are 2 Richard Spencers out there. Will you ever see them in the same room at the same time? Pearl Lady is here. Welcome and hello. And so's the great Roy Danton. Bass guitarist is with us. FCP says it was a therapy session. It was, but who was on the couch? Were they both on couches? And what exactly does that? Were they on the same couch? El Ronder, can you check the clock for me? I think Mark shut down this non-white woman quicker than the Taliban. You mean than the Taliban would have? Or has Mark shut down the Taliban? Caesar says Spencer and Collett, and yes, Millennial Woes and NWG are real heroes to me. Thank you for including me, brother. Marlene is here. Great to see you. Barky is here. What did he say? Says, let him go. He was all show. Lockie says, Groiper is just a less than straight grouper, the fish. Less than straight? You mean straight as in heterosexual? If there is a fish out in the world that is homosexual, it's not long for this world. Or is it actually physically bent, like maybe midway down? Isabella says, I don't consider myself an American or a white person, but I'll die on the land that I live on. That's determination. Archangel is here. Hello. Eric says, sounds like Richard needs to go free. He would never, my friend. He would never adopt anything that he cannot be the cynosure of, where all eyes are on him. And that's his personality. That's, like I said, I mean, I've spent time with Mark. I've spent time with Richard. They both are amicable. They're both good guys, just generally speaking. And everybody has strengths and weaknesses. And same as me, everybody. But I think that Mark had him here. Now, had Richard still been in the driver's seat of the white sympathetic sphere here in the States, who knows how this debate would have turned out. But we'd have to try to travel in time. We can get in the retardus and travel back, grab that Spencer, bring him forward, and have him debate Mark then. But you have a very different Richard here. He's saying, look, I'm leaving. I'm done with this. I'm antithetical to you, delightfully so now. And this is where I started this show, is that you really can't have a debate when you have people with different moral structures and different objectives. Richard has a very different objective from Mark now. And this is what follows. But it's still good programming. Grim says, Mark always wins debates. If you can call this a debate. Well, exactly. Promulgation says, your response with Aiden to his Trash Richard video was how I found your channel. Ah, awesome. And he also adds, Ryan Falk he thinks is alt hype. Okay. But that name I know. I don't recall his videos or anything at the moment, but Nancy Drew says, quote, woke scolding a person is woke and scolds others who are not. It's from the Urban Dictionary. So she was insulting Mark at the end, probably because he bitch slapped her down several times. Flavius is of the opinion that Nick is a grifter. Brad is with us. Are there any Nick supporters who would like to say something in response? Or Richard Spencer supporters who would like to say something in response? We'll make sure we didn't miss anybody. And then I am going to retire to, what do you think I do when I stop the stream? Do I go on a lion hunt in the great state of Virginia, the once great state? Azimuth Clark is here. Great to see you, brother. We're going to be back Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Do not miss the gathering. It's going to be wonderful. 4 hours of empowerment. People saying thank you. You are most welcome. Ray said, so maybe this is in favor of Richard Spencer. He says that he believes that Mark is opportunistic semi-grifter and that he takes money from Russia. You must be joking. Drew says, Spencer is Amber, a chameleon, not who he seems to be. Pearl Lady, other than your channel, I listen to Jared Taylor and Paul Kersey's podcast every week. I know them both, both very nice guys. Warner saying, great show. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad you all could be here. And Bain says, no one won this debate. Spencer is right about Fuentes. Mark is right about Spencer. Spencer has given up on the flourishing of white life. And I think we got down kind of into the weeds, the nitty gritty of why that is the case. When you're there to aggrandize yourself as the primary impetus, then being burnt down by all of these people who are supposed to be celebrating you by way of their action, by way of their activity, is going to make a fast escape inevitable. And then you have to rationalize that after the fact, which is not to say that the rationalization is not fair and honest. Caleb says, do you have a daytime job? I do. Try to find it. Anti-whites are going to be searching hard now. Many years ago, many years ago, they tried to get me fired from a job, and it fell upon deaf ears. Let's hope that happens again. AJ Bell says, thank you. I think it was fun. It was fun. So make sure you're with us tomorrow. We're going to take a look at an article. I will make fun of it, and you will laugh your ass off because I am hysterical. Genuine humor. I mean, it's not just going to be like the same, line and repeat of irony or pointing out the double standards, which can be great. It can be funny. Trust me. But boy, after 10,000 repetitions, you know what they say about simple pleasures, don't you? Simple minds. Tell Kevin, if there is indeed two Richard Spencers, is it possible there will be a showdown between both of them in a classic Western movie style scene? If so, will they both be wearing ass mindless chaps. I feel like some audience members might really be hoping for that. I'll see you all tomorrow.
People go free. I guess I'm too blind to see. I'm just trying